Hello, little loves. Episode 6 of Kiszmet podcast. Now, a quick intro. Kiszmet, me. What does it mean? It comes from the word Kiszmet, an Arabic or Turkish word that means destiny. And I talk about how we have to earn our destiny where it comes to life and love. Kiszmet is a mission. It's a platform. It's a purpose that relates to the science and art of connection. So I know a lot of you out there, you've seen maybe some of my 10,000 plus videos on TikTok, Instagram, etc., shorts on YouTube. Or maybe this is your first time here. And this is something that is universal that we can all relate to, right? It's a human core instinct. The instinct to connect. The desire to procreate. To relate to each other. To feel understood, seen, cherished, respected, useful, competent. And a lot of that source comes from other people. That is not a weakness. This does not invalidate a very new, very recent, actually stronger development in Western civilizations, self-love. Right? Self-actualization and a lot of pre-Enlightenment era kind of philosophy, internal optimization is more common in Eastern philosophy, right? Western philosophy, Western civilization, post the Industrial Revolution, a lot of it was externally based development, right? Moving from hunters to gatherers into really industrial technocrats and now the information age and eventually the AI revolution. Especially in the Western civilization, a lot of our meaning and purpose has been derived from external status symboling, right? I have this house, I have this person, this trophy wife, trophy husband, etc., trophy proposal. I have this amount of money. These are my toys that I can play with. This is the lifestyle I've created. While people are living in dissonance with how they internally feel. Now, there's no question that below a certain means of living, life is harder. Right? You have less money to take care of your health. What is money? Just a means of exchange. Okay. We could use coins. We can use barter with items, whatever it is. It's an exchange of value. So below a certain point, life does get harder. Sure. But above a certain point, if anything, the quote goes, more money, more problems. So the sweet spot is somewhere in between. And that ties a lot to relationships that nowadays, it's almost by default, especially in Western civilization, right? Modern society, that we underweight and undervalue the importance of relationships. Now, my platform may come across like overvaluing it, right? It's all I talk about here. Because for me, I started this platform to find the love of my life, yes? To create a family and legacy. And as a man, what is the quote from Pride and Prejudice, right? A man in possession of good health and fortune must be in want of a wife. Now, I don't believe in marriage. We can talk about that for other reasons. In short, I don't want the government involved in my love story. It is a connection between me and my woman, my love. Yes? And it comes with a lot of other problems that are unnecessary. And if anything, detract from healthy organic love. But the point is, as a man, and actually we're going to talk about some of this. I want to touch on some of these things. When you all are assessing men, and who is compatible with you and who you should give the energy to, that, love is not a when problem. Love is primarily a who problem. Now, of course, at 2 years old, it's going to be tough to have discretion over who you're falling in love with, right? If you are sickly in a hospital bed and no one has come to visit you in 2 years, it's going to be hard to have a high standard for love, right? So there is some parameters around timing. There has to be almost capacity, right? There has to be, it's really the where and the when tied together. It's almost time space in one unit. But primarily, it is who you relate to. See, it would not be a good feeling, and this isn't to force the philosophy, but just empirically, to believe that, imagine with your parents, and a lot of us, we don't choose our parents, we don't choose our family. A lot of us have had traumatic experiences growing up. I myself did not have an ideal upbringing in many ways. And, parents try their best as well. They're dealing with their own version of issues from their parents, etc. And you can take it all the way back to the Big Bang before there were even Homo sapiens. But at some point, you have to take accountability as an adult. And the point being that beyond the where and the when, love is a who problem. So imagine if you felt that, or imagine you yourself as a parent. Let's even take the obligation out from this thought experiment. Just, would you want to feel that there are times when I'm a parent to my kid and other times, I'm just not there for them? No, right? That would feel horrible. And a lot of you have felt that painful experience with your own family, right? Felt abandoned, betrayed, neglected, put down, criticized. It's a terrible feeling. So real love, now a lot of people will say love is unconditional. We can quickly talk about that. Love is the most conditional act. To say that love has no conditions is the equivalent of me saying, why don't I just fall in love with this super glue, right? There's no condition, so why not? I can just fall in love with this. Love is extremely conditional. You want them to have certain X values that make you compatible with them, or you could fall in love with anyone, right? Love is interdependent selfishness. We are all self-interested. We are all selfish. That is healthy. We don't do things to cause ourselves pain. Love is an act such that it's a sustained experience. We'll talk about this more. That sharing values with someone and taking care of someone makes you happy because they make you happy. So it's interwoven, but it's still selfish. Okay. Now, if you establish a foundation with someone, of course, you're going to get into arguments or disagreements is really the better way to put it. And then reach understanding. You're going to have conflict. You're going to have misunderstanding. And during those off days, that doesn't mean the whole foundation of love goes away. Right? Just like sometimes it can rain a little too hard outside. Sometimes it can be a little too hot. That doesn't mean you hate summer as a season or hate the freshness and newness of spring. So just like that, love is foundation building. And part of that foundation building, the most important part, if anything, is conflict resolution. But let's pause on that. So the point being that love is a who problem. It is highly conditional. This is why so many people have complaints, because their conditions are either too rigorous or they have the wrong conditions. Yes? Just imagine a man coming to you at a wedding, your wedding, saying, hey, I'm doing this all for you. I get nothing out of this. I'm marrying you for you. If you guys believe in marriage, some of you, that would feel like crap, right? You want him to feel that you are so interwoven in his happiness that he can't imagine life without you. That's how it should feel. So love can get as close to unconditional seemingly as possible on the surface, a mother's love for its child. But even that, if they change the genetics of the child to something completely mutant, if one sibling ended all the other siblings from Earth, yes, the love would detract a bit. Sure, resilient mother will still have empathy, etc., but you understand the point. So love is primarily a who problem, such that it's not that on some bad days we suddenly aren't in love. We were in love, but we grew out of it. We moved on, but I wish them the best. That's not love. That's not the definition of love. You're not allowed to make up your own definitions, or why don't you call this a banana? The whole point of language is to communicate with each other. You're not allowed to make up definitions for concepts. The only reason we have reference or symbolic reference, aka words, to refer to empirical substrates or actual entities or phenomena is so that we can understand each other, or there would be no point to language. So love has a definition. It is biology. So you can't come up with your own definition of it. And I'm not coming up with my own definition of it either. I'm telling you what it is biochemically. We can talk about it poetically if you'd like. We can talk about it in romantic prose. We can talk about it conceptually, symbolically, with allegory. But at the end of the day, it is a biological phenomena. Understanding that implies also that most of you who are listening to this are love virgins. Okay, you've never been in love or would have lasted, except for the unfortunate case where your partner may have passed, which is tragic, extremely painful. And this does not have to do with any twin flame, soulmate. All that stuff is not real. We're talking about literally the reality that if someone gave you 100 apples and said, which apple do you like the best right now? If we hooked you up to an fMRI, there's one apple's bite that would cause the most pleasure in you at that moment. Now, if we extended that across a life term, some days different apples would create more of a spike, but over the life term, across the most amount of years and days, one apple would be the winner. And that is what we are calling love. So it is getting as close to that as possible in terms of reducing pain in your life and releasing pleasure, okay? And I want to talk about that. The avoidance of pain, if anything, is more important in this search for love than it is to seek explosions of pleasure. I talked about this briefly in my last video, which is that, I'm a man, okay? Men are very different from women, and we want to touch upon this biologically. Very different. Now, if you want to do the whole thing that we share 60% of our genes with bananas, we are very similar to chimpanzees. Yes, if you want to talk about how similar men and women are, yeah, we're way more similar than different, but we come together because of our differences, correct? So that's what we're here to talk about, okay? So as a man, right, I naturally, as a man, I am a short-term mater, meaning I create thousands of sperm per minute. I want to spread my seed far and wide. This isn't a conscious thing. This is my nature as a man. A lot of people will unfortunately not understand this very core, seemingly obvious truth about men and women. You experience it every day, but when you don't have the understanding of why it's happening, it can become easy to vilify it, right? Which only causes you more pain because you still feel a draw to men, of course, hopefully. And you're lost in this confusion, and then eventually it becomes an inadequacy in yourself that I don't know why I'm in pain. And what is self-esteem? It's esteeming the self, right? It's having almost a meta-psycho concept of yourself that you are capable to take care of yourself. Were you not conscious of it, you'd still have some inherent, your body would be a little more afraid to go into a new room if every time you walk into new rooms you cause pain. But when you have this added conscious layer, this dialogue, and also subconscious, unconscious that manifests into your dreams, etc., and into your unconscious body movements and silent interactions, it can be very painful. It can feel very confusing. And a quick tangent is that, I hear a lot of equating men and women, and a lot of that has come from, it's not easy to point to one phenomena and blame it, right? Oh, it's fourth wave feminism. It's because men's testosterone's lower because of microplastics. It's because of social media. It's because of this. It's because of that. All of those are most likely contributing factors, okay? And it is good to understand it. But what's more important is understanding what you can do about it today. Okay. And part of that is understanding the history. But the truth is, you're never going to be omniscient about, if you really want to understand every movement and gene and atom in every human, then you might as well go back all the way to the Big Bang. Okay. As Richard Dawkins says, we are meant as humans to process medium-sized objects moving at medium speeds or momentum, not the cosmos and the quantum or the quark level. Okay. So before you stretch to, and almost I would equate that in female language to very mystical, emotionally laden concepts, which can feel like a short-term drug almost. Concepts like twin flame, limerence, soul tie, energy exchange, narcissist, breadcrumber, toxic, gaslighter. It's easy to use these catch-all phrases. It seemingly is easy up front because, one, you get a sense of community with others who are in the same position. So it feels like I'm not alone. I'm not crazy, right? At least misery loves company. Okay. And just the act of having community, even in a negative space, is still community, right? So there's that. So it may feel on the surface level like it self-soothes the pain, but it doesn't actually solve anything. It just creates a bucket of, okay, this is a red flag, etc. But then why do we find that sometimes that theme repeats over and over again? And then if anything, there can be then too much of a 180, which is, oh, I'm the problem. I just don't know what to do with dating. And you know what? I'm just going to leave the dating game. Now, the women who have probably been through more pain and maybe have a harder time with independent thought tend to become angrier. Okay? This is the aggressive, combative, I'll choose the bear, put down men, etc. And it's screaming out from pain. Okay, because if you were okay, the ones who say, for example, and we'll give you the male version in a minute. The version would be, I'm at peace, right? I have my dogs. I'm treated better. I can fund my own lifestyle. I'm not in control. If you're at peace, why would you need to talk about it, right? It's the equivalent. Now we'll get to the male version, which is that imagine men, or it happens, of course, right? And this is the tough part. A lot of people have trouble in kind of translating this language between men and women because we're so in pain. It's almost the equivalent of if you speak French and you run into someone who speaks a Slavic, or let's just say someone who speaks German, okay? If you are hungry and you haven't eaten for weeks, it's going to be a lot more annoying to hear their language and to translate and be like, I'm looking for a restaurant, I'm starving, right? If they speak French and let's say an added layer, they're empathetic with you, so much easier to communicate. If anything, it can temporarily stave off the hunger, right? So the equivalent is when we are in pain, it's harder to almost empathize and understand someone very different from us. Now, the motivation here is you want that person. Okay, this isn't a subjective choice. You can live your life without. The majority of people, actually across history, for example, when it comes to men, they say something like 50% of men didn't mate. Their genes didn't pass on. They were just selected out for not being good enough functionally. Okay. Now, we could call it unfair. Maybe some of them were, and they had unlucky circumstance. Whatever it is, those genes didn't pass on. Okay. And nowadays, and you'll see a parallel to a lot of other species in manatees and in humans, 20% of the men, on average, this is the Pareto principle, this is shown in business productivity, etc., which is 20% of the producers create 80% of the net income or profits. So in the sexual marketplace, as they call it, right? I call this the economics of sex and really mating, because that's what drives all of this. This is why men and women come together. Even if you come together for different purposes, this is also why men and women can't be friends. We can talk about all these things, but 20% of men, on average, sleep with 80% of women. They are competing. They would rather almost be the sister wives to these men that they consider select men, choice men, versus someone who offers them consistency and a lot of time, who is lower value, not ambitious, plays video games at home all day, right? Now, it's not the literal equivalent concept of you'd become some sister wife or something like that. That's a hyperbolic version of saying that they're willing to tolerate the cheater, right? Because it's still better access to a higher character man is what they are judging, okay? We can talk about cheating too and how that's an expression versus a quality of a person, and then things that can cause a correlation resulting in those behaviors, different qualities that are less abstract and more constant and static in a person. But point being is this translation is very important. So there's this 80-20% type of thing. And then I'd say the equivalent, which is 20% of women are getting 80% of the commitment from men, actual depth of investment. Now, the equivalent is you see women sometimes who will say, men are so easy. I've never met a man I couldn't bag, right? For sleeping with you, because that's very low investment for a man. And this gets back to the point about the biological differences. We'll talk about it. They say men aren't easy when it comes to getting them to put a ring on it. Yes? Not as easy. Now, the quick retort might be, no, I've had a lot of proposals, etc. Yes, but none of them that you've chosen or you'd be with him. So this circles all the way back to the point of this pain, okay? That if you were in peace, you would not need to complain about it. And the equivalent is if men said, I'm at peace, I don't even want women anymore. Women's natural retort is that, you just must like men. Then we turn that to the women who say, I don't need men, etc. It's like, okay, you must just like women. Now that's, if anything, more digestible because women are naturally more empathetic towards their own kind in the sense of being a community, almost like a beehive. Estrogen allows them to almost sexually aesthetically appreciate women in ways men can't with men. Testosterone makes them more avoidant. So this all ties back to the point, which is that, men are short-term maters. So in the sense that if I didn't find love in my whole life, that would definitely be a negative, of course. But I would fare okay. I'd be all right because I have spent a lot of time and effort into understanding the mating market, men and women. This is the only reason I feel the authority to talk about this, because I do consider myself the top authority in this space where it comes to top of the funnel of the relations, okay? Where it comes to the intrapersonal, talking about the nurturing dynamic, the power struggles, etc. I talk about the science, and I think that angle is very important. So there's a lot you can still learn here, but I think I'll be a lot better at that and a lot more qualified once I have my relationship, right? Because that and this ties to a point I want to talk about, which is the seasons of love. That requires almost a different skill set than the skill set of attracting your partner. But most of you don't even have a man at the top of the funnel that you think is quality, right? So that part I can definitely help with, because even if you are not, you don't have to be attracted to me personally. There's going to be definitely subjective differences. But where it comes to objective masculine virtue, I can, whatever man most likely that you end up with, unless it's me, he's going to be easier to get than me. So the point is, I am sharing with you things that you may not hear from the locker room of men, okay? And I think it's important for you all to hear this because it will help equip you with understanding so you can better make choices that work in your favor. This isn't directing you, you should do this, you should do this. This is to help you understand how men work, but also what you're experiencing and giving you a space to talk about it without feeling shame and guilt, etc. So the first thing to admit almost is that I see this a lot on social media now, and maybe my algorithm is a little bit more curated towards it because this is the type of content I talk about, but I know it's very prevalent. Men and women claiming they dislike each other, right? Being very critical of each other as a whole gender, really is what it is. Crapping on the more Trojan horse version is crapping on dating, right? There's no point dating now. Dating apps are so bad. I wish I was in my grandparents' era. Men aren't being men. This gets back to the gender style. Women aren't worth dating right now. All this type of stuff. And I'm like, we have to go a layer deeper just to understand. Again, this is not a prescription or a course of action, but see this as an excuse to reflect. Just as I've been reflecting on this, I am sharing, if anything, my reflections, and you can do with it what you will. But why? As they say, the opposite of love is not hate. It is apathy, right? It's almost being aloof, disengaged. When I see someone who is talking very passionately about someone, even negatively, there's still a connection there. There's a tether there. Yes? So, and that can come in a lot of different ways. That doesn't necessarily mean, I put down my ex. That's important. That means that I'm tied to him. No, there are women who will say things like, he's a good guy and I really wish him all the best. And they're doing that to socially signal that they're past it as an actual repressed emotion of guilt that they are now trying to virtue signal that they are noble when really they just got over the guy and they almost feel bad about it, okay? Which they shouldn't, I'd say, in a lot of the cases. So the point is we want to surface a lot of these subterranean emotions so that we turn this from rather a battle against each other when really the battle a lot of times is an inward battle, right? It's coming from pain and the confusion around, what do I do with this feeling? I don't know. So, my friends do this. They put down men. These social media gurus who are just people, right? Put down other people. So this is what I should tag on to. I should listen to this, to this, to this. And then nothing really solves it. This is the equivalent of people asking almost, let's say, a successful athlete, how do you do this? How do you become so good? Now they can give some general advice like, I wake up at 5 a.m., I practice this many drills, I do this, blah, 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 and then there was a little luck. If a person copied that exact formula, they're not going to end up as the best, right? If LeBron James gave advice on how to be a great basketball player, they're not going to end up like him doing the exact same thing. The truth is, if his memory were erased and he followed his own prescriptions that he tried to sum up, he wouldn't become himself, right? Because there's so many micro nuances, which is the equivalent of what I've learned about men and women. If you followed my advice to a T, we can get you a relationship. It's not going to give you the level of insight I've accumulated with all of my million micro interactions because I've made this my focus and my passion. The benefit is some of the things that I can sum up can help you almost on a prescription level, right? This is like learning how to change a tire, etc., some things like that. But more than that, I want it to be a symbol. I want it to be an excuse to reflect, kind of like Valentine's Day, right? A commercial holiday. Every day can be a celebration of love and should be with a great person that you're with. But I still like Valentine's Day because I see it as a great excuse to remind yourself, like Veterans Day or any of these days, it wakes you up a bit, right? It reminds you of the deeper questions. So I think it's very important that when you see sometimes, you'll notice women, some of your peers, they'll be angry, right, at men. Put down men, these are all broke men, they're low effort men, everyone's disloyal, all this stuff. But what that's really coming from, the more natural emotion from a woman, it's coming from a feeling of sadness. And it's the inverse with men. Men are naturally angry, right? They're the more aggressive, high testosterone species of the two of us, men and women. And how do they present? If you look at them on social media, it's just natural polarity. The women are getting more combative. The men are getting more defeated. Just go to the gym, bro. You lost her. It's fine. Just make do. What do they call it? Black pill, right? It's not even worth it. They're depressed But what's actually happening inside them? They're angry, right? And they'll lash out in different ways. You'll see that with almost what do they call it? The vulnerable narcissist. Passive aggressive, guilt tripping ploys, excuses for, I'll respect a man more who will say, I'm not going to be loyal to you because I don't like you enough. You can stick with me or not. I'm going to I'm going to be with whoever I want, and you can try to win me over. That's not going to be a great experience for you. That's still more respectable, him owning that, than being the guy who says, babe, you're the only one on my mind, says good morning all the time, and then is in a group chat with his boys talking about how he hates you and is cheating on you, right? That's a weaker man. Even though on the surface will seem like more romantic. And then what is the quick wrap up for that? I didn't see any of the signs he did all these things, get a little community of women to be like, oh my God, he's so bad. You're okay, girl. You go, girl. And you can do all of that. But at the end of the day, what is the point of all of this? You want a successful relationship, right? Now, this is important to bring up because remember, I'm tying it to the original point, which is if I don't have a relationship, I'll be okay if I just keep sleeping with women. I'll be all right. That is the truth as a man. And I made sure to put effort into figuring out how women work so I could do that. It's like food to a man. It's the truth. We create thousands of sperm. We get wet dreams like women don't, right? I actually have never gotten that, maybe because I started, it's whatever point. But the point being is our bodies are very different. Very different, okay? We cannot treat things the same. Or why would it be, I want a man to protect me in the street. I want him to reach up and grab this. I want him to be taller than me in these things. Those are just the physical traits, but you want a man to earn money and provide for you, right? That means he has to take on more stress and be disciplined, show up at work every day or create a company, etc. These are all differences between us. Men don't call their male friends when they feel sick and say, yo, bro, can you make me feel better? They don't have the nurturing, intuitive, introspective, empathetic touch that women do. Okay, so there's a lot of differences between us. And you'll almost see, unfortunately, that fourth wave feminism, the current iteration of it, which is tied in, not just the Me Too, which that part is good, obviously, hold bad people accountable for bad actions or bad actions accountable. But obviously it's gone too far with sometimes discriminating against men who have just rejected women, right? But beyond that, it's this intersectional victim theory, right? My gender tied with my economic status, tied with my race, and all of this is me being an oppressed victim in the least oppressed time in history. If you're in America, in the least oppressed country out of all the countries. Okay, people will talk about universal healthcare and stuff like that. It's a homogenous population with no innovation, etc. Right? People aren't dying to move to Nordic countries versus the other way around. And there's reasons for that. There's pros and cons to both things, but everything costs money. Okay, if you're going to tax someone, you're going to tax the rich. If you're going to tax them, then they're not going to want to stay here and they're going to move their assets somewhere else. It's the equivalent basic psychology of if you gave your child a toy at Christmas and within 5 seconds said, give it to your cousin so she share it, they're going to grab the toy tighter, right? If you let them play with it, they'll naturally share it. This is very basic psychology that capitalism and meritocracy really is the only natural human system, which gets back to the original point, which is that when I talk about men being short-term maters, that is not something to evolve out of. It's not even something you can as a man, okay? The men on average who say, I am self-disciplined, so I repress my sexuality, that is just a mating strategy to appeal to women, or most likely a coping strategy because they can't get women, okay? There's no men who can get women who aren't acting on it in some capacity. A lot of men have the wrong philosophy. You'll see men who are high celebrity status, high wealth, all of these types of things, and they are in the worst relationship situations because, once again, they did not understand the core philosophy or the core biology. So access isn't sufficient. Understanding is key. That is the truth. Deep understanding without high access results in a far better life than having infinite access. That's why you'll see so many celebrities burn out, etc. Right? When you go too extreme into any area, chances are there's an underdevelopment on another side. Okay, as they say, it's better to be rich and anonymous than to be poor and famous. Okay, for men mainly. Now, the point being that you all, as a woman, you want depth in your life where it comes to relationships. You are not like me where you want to sleep with a new person every week. Your testosterone is not spiking every week. Okay, you ovulate, sure. But when you ovulate, you're not willing to just sleep with strangers. You definitely feel more libido. But if you were, you'd sleep with tons of men, right? Because you can. The most unattractive woman on the planet can still sleep with 10 men a day because of how starved most men are. Going back to this 20-80 rule. That is the truth, okay? Now, the point being that this whole life, right? If you do not operate on your evolutionary program, people think that we have to choose our moral codes. Morality is baked into us because of biology. Our moral code is within us. It's that which aligns with life, which lowers our pain and increases our pleasure. That is what operates on everything, okay? And procreation is a core part of that program because by definition, you are the result of millennia. Beyond that, organisms, a multitude of organisms coming together to result in you. Now, you have the power to end it, okay? You can end it all right now and just be like, I'm not going to mate. That's fine. By definition, the type of person who makes that choice, those genes get selected out again, right? Nature doesn't care about our random human choices that we meaning make to feel better. It's like, for example, we have opposable thumbs. I can touch myself all day. Is that what it was meant for? No, it's just a separate adaptation that I can use. Will that result in a benefit? No. Is there glucose in the world for energy? Yes. Can I eat 20 donuts a day? I could. Is that good for me evolutionarily? No. And I'll experience pain from it. So loneliness, I can give you stats on, it's the equivalent of 15 cigarettes a day, all these crap they throw around. Statistics don't really resonate with people, right? Let's go to your feelings, your experience. Let's talk again about this external representation of how it comes out a lot, which can be anger, right? It can be taking a story that you've had, projecting it and painting it to all men because his impact on you was so deep that now it flavors everything, right? If your first time driving a car, you get into a massive accident, it's going to be pretty scary driving the second time. If your 654th time you run over a curb as you're backing out of a convenience store, probably not going to be as scary to drive the next day relative. Yes. So our desire here is not to deny the pain we've been through, but also not to celebrate it. We've created this counterculture where we are so under-equipped with how to deal with pain effectively that it's, you know what? Let's make it a virtue, right? Let's put down men who get sex, even though that's the type of man I secretly want as a woman, right? I want the player who chooses me, and that's who I end up sleeping with. You all aren't sleeping with male virgins, right? You're not like, I got to go find that church boy. You'll say you want a man of God and all these things. You're not ending up with men who act in the word of what your God claims, right? I'm not religious or anything, but point being is these cognitive dissonances, when you act in a way that you can't understand yourself, it's going to cause pain. It's going to keep you in your head. It's almost like the enlightened, self-actualized version of you would not need to think. It wouldn't need to think consciously. It's almost like your conscious script is the after credits of you processing discrepancies of your intuition against reality, right? Every time you pick up a bottle of water to open the cap, are you like, okay, turn it to the left. Slow down. Don't go too fast or it'll fly. No, you just do it automatically. But the first time you're probably like, okay, I got to go counterclockwise, right? So, okay, a little bit of an intermission. The recording from last night or this morning, whatever, got cut. An hour and a half of my beautiful ideas just on complete mute because the phone died. Okay, that's what happens when you have too much passion. So I don't remember exactly what I left off with, and I haven't slept because it just pissed me off so much, and you can only yell at ChatGPT so much before it starts retaliating, okay? So we're just going to pick up with the general theme, and I will say, as a man, and this may differ from man to man, but in general, it's probably something to know, especially because, whatever it is, when I don't sleep, which I never really do, it definitely affects my memory negatively. It's almost the equivalent of how I would feel when I used to drink. So my prefrontal cortex is probably not in full mode right now. So I am going to be less probably empathetic and more brusque and probably miss some details. You all have to deal with it. This is life. You got to keep going. I just couldn't get myself to sleep because I'm just so pissed off about this, so that I have to redo this now. So I'm just going to say whatever I want, but the theme, what I wanted to get to, I think I had left off with something about this water bottle and almost having a kind of an automatic memory of something over time. I don't even know what I was relating that to. I don't know. Something about being in tune with yourself, whatever it is. But what we want to get to, what I want to share, at least a large part of the meat of what I was talking about, was the seasons of love, right? Relationship staging. I think I touched upon already how love is conditional, etc. But let's just get into the seasons. Let's just do this matter-of-factly, okay? Because what I've seen, what I've understood from millions of interactions with women in this beautiful journey of creating this platform, and even in my interactions prior and studying the science and my own life experiences, is that especially now in Western culture, a lot more so, I'd say, there is a desecration of some core concepts of difference that used to be intuitively understood and didn't need to be taught, and were potentially more exemplified in our households, right? Meaning traditional masculinity and traditional femininity. Now, the goal here is not to bring us back to a prior era. Oh, we want to be in the 1950s. The people who complain about, I wish I was in my grandparents' times. I wish things were simpler. I wish there was no more social media, all this stuff. Dating sucks in LA. Dating sucks here. I'm like, you would be complaining anywhere. Be assured. It is a complainer attitude. We have the potential for the deepest of love stories today. We can scale and access anyone in the world through the internet. The seeming illusion of infinite options may give you choice fatigue, right? You may then get lazier, the equivalent of having too much dopamine from scrolling too much, and then it demotivates you. But to claim the opportunity is not present and that the love stories of present are not deeper than they've ever been across history. There's been no man on earth who's made over 10,000 videos for the love of his life before he's even met her. Would that have been possible 200 years ago? No, right? Not in this capacity. Were there deep lovers at every point in history? Yes. But the scale and alignment we can have in shared values now are unparalleled across history, and they're only going to get better. Now, on the other side of that, the flip side is we can also experience the most isolation we've ever experienced, getting FOMO by seeing other people in relations, having Uber Eats delivered to our door so we don't need to socialize, right? Almost feeling the illusion of too many choices by getting attention online, etc., right? Feeling isolated in a lot of ways and less motivated because it's a network effect, right? If the neighbors aren't talking to each other, you don't want to be the first one on average to knock on a door and say, hey, I need a friend, right? So there are negative network effects that can also occur as a byproduct of the benefits of technology, like being able to listen to this message, right? So yeah, I mean, think about the equivalent of looking at your ex's pictures 3 years later or something like that, right? That wasn't happening in the past, right? Maybe there was some belonging someone had, but on average, people stuck together. Or if the tribe split, it was because one of the partners was exed or passed away, or they've had their children. And yeah, honestly, that's really the only reason that these things would split. That doesn't mean that there weren't problems in relations, there wasn't infidelity, all this type of stuff, but you wouldn't be looking through their Instagram 3 years later and feeling pangs. It's not normal. It wasn't coded into our evolution to have access to that. Just like, 2,000 years ago, men could not see the amount of digital women they could see now, right? It really floods their brain. We're not meant for that type of stuff. And they've done those studies with rats, for example. I think they called it like pleasuredom or something, where they created a community where they just gave all these rats drugs, basically, and it just completely demotivated them. And they started just slacking, even though they had a perfect environment. They became obese. They let themselves rot into death. This is what occurred, right? So humans are not so different. You could say, oh, those are rats. I mean, our species is more evolved in a lot of ways than other animals, but we're more similar than you think. All right, we share 60% of our genes with bananas. So what I want to get to is that there's been this pitting of men against women, okay? And I believe that a lot of it comes from an agenda from the top, right? It's a similar agenda, which is keep the masses distracted, reap the benefits at the top. And that also, we can spend more time complaining, oh my God, etc. This is the equivalent of people complaining about multimillionaires, etc. Tax them more, tax them more. It's easy to say that when you're not the millionaire. When you become that, how many people so easily switch, right? So it's similar in the sense that when you're in power, yes, you're going to want to keep your power. The equivalent example being fourth wave feminism has been extremely harmful and destructive for women in particular, right? Men at the top, we get more casual sex now from women. Oh, boo-hoo for us. We're crying about it. No, right? Another tax base where you all are working your booties off, getting pressured that you are weak and not successful in the masculine sense. You're not financially independent. You are male-centered. If you don't lean into misery loves company of this message that has been very deteriorative, right? You are more stressed now. You're taking on more burden. Men are doing less effort for you. You're giving your bodies and not getting long-term attachment. How do any of those things make you feel good? It's like, okay, now I have an insurance policy though, but I made my own money, etc. That was the insurance policy for not getting a man who loved you to pay for you. That's the truth, right? If someone loves you as a man, he will want to take care of you. Why would he want you stressed, forcing yourself to wake up at a certain time during your menstrual cycle to make money, right? Things you do will be valuable in the world, of course, things you create, etc. But to make it a living that can sustain over time on an ongoing basis in the future with discipline, and which requires a repression of emotion, is not feminine coded. So this is all to say that I think I mentioned this, that as a man, right, if I never find love, will that be a negative? Sure. But if I just short-term mate for the rest of my life, I'm going to eventually have kids. See, that's another thing I notice. Women not choosing, right? Just ad infinitum, getting these little on and off dopamine hits of new men. It almost requires the men to be more toxic or them to interact in a higher dopamine laden way to feel anything. And then they wonder why they're having trouble with the nicer guy, etc. You should be setting a timeline that I have to choose a man by the end of this. And that should tie to biology, right? Especially if you're a healthy woman, you want to have children, right? So if you're beyond that age, of course, you still want companionship. You're still going to want a relationship, but the parameters change a bit in terms of what you're looking for. You're still looking for core masculinity, but the way you're going to integrate into his life is going to be slightly different. And we'll talk about that. But all this to say that if you are a woman who does not have deep companionship romantically with a man, those are meaningless relationships. You can have all the guys in the friend zone that you want, because guys and girls can't be friends, right? They're just dudes who would probably sleep with you. They're not man enough to pull it off. But that's not going to satisfy you romantically. Your girlfriends are definitely a stronger basis of satisfaction as a woman in life. This is across species. Almost all single mothers across species, which is the majority of females across species, right? The male doesn't do long-term paternal investment. As species get more evolved, when you get to chimpanzees, bonobos, you get into the great apes, yes, there's more paternal investment. Then obviously with humans, it's a long dependence period for children from infancy to self-sufficiency. So yes, there can be more paternal investment, but for the higher value dudes who offer more, they're going to be short-term. It's going to be tougher to get monogamy out of them, right? There's easily men in your DMs right now or your dating apps that will romance the crap out of you and be loyal because they can't pull other women. You don't want those guys. It's like a love triangle of despair. You want the guys who think they can do better than you. You don't want the guys who are willing to be romantic with you. We'll talk about short-term mating versus long-term mating, but the point being that women can get their sources of community from women more than men can get it from men. Okay, there is a difference in that. The lone wolf is a healthier trope, which is why on dating apps, if you see a man with several group pictures with his friends, that's a red flag. Those are the frat guys, the sports guys, the guys who have to move in a flock because they don't have an independent sense of purpose. Now, of course, you want a man who has friends. That is probably a negative in me that I don't. I have all these followers, but too judgmental. I don't have. I've cut them all off. Is the truth. It's a negative. So I am slightly biased against it, but the truth is women are more community oriented. It is the same thing tied to on New Year's why a girl can compliment a girl, if anything, kiss their girlfriend, etc. Men can't do that because testosterone makes them naturally more avoidant, more competitive. They care about social hierarchy. Women are all in some version slightly bi in the sense that they can look at a woman and be like, that's beautiful. And that's not because men are scared of coming across non-heterosexual. It's because they don't have that same type of affinity that two women can have. That's why it's called girlfriend and not, oh, I'm with my boyfriends. There's a reason for these things. It's not just social constructs. The genders are very different biologically, okay? Now, we could argue, oh, but there's so much more we have in common. Yes, just like the 60% genes with bananas and how much we share over 99% or 96% with chimpanzees, with each other over 99%. But we come together for our differences. That is the point, correct? That is the song and dance. We are all here to procreate. It's the second most important thing after life. So all the programs, if you want to optimize your life, you don't need to take any of these. You shouldn't see these as prescriptions. What I'm doing here is holding a mirror. So maybe this activates things in you that you have already been feeling, right? I'm on the same journey as you. What I'm teaching and almost externally journaling here are things that I have felt myself, things that I've studied in depth. I've been studying this for over a decade, right? And I would not feel the authority to talk about these things if I didn't feel I was number one in the space at the top of the funnel. Do I think I'm the best at interpersonal conflict and nurturing? No, I'm not in a relationship right now that has lasted where I have to practice that as much. Am I the best at learning developmental psychology, fatherhood techniques? No. I talk about the science of it, sure, on the platform. But what I know best at is no woman has been able to lock me. Whatever guys you're going for are going to be easier to get than me. That is the truth. I've been hyper avoidant emotionally. This is also a thing to crap on attachment theory. No woman's messaging me being like, my guy's so anxious. How do I manage him better? I really like him. It's always he's avoidant, because masculine men are naturally more avoidant because they have testosterone, which results in that. Estrogen and oxytocin makes women read social cues more. They're more empathetic, makes them more anxious. They are more pro-social. That is the truth. So just the easy thing to say is men are physically anxious when they want to sleep with you up front, but they're emotionally avoidant. You're physically avoidant. You're not sleeping with everyone like I'm not willing to sleep with everyone, but I'm less selective than you are with physicality, because it's just, as a man, sex is basically nothing. For a man who has access, they'll glorify it as being super deeply meaningful when they try to use that as a white knight pandering technique to try to sleep with you, okay? But you are emotionally anxious. You're emotionally needy. So this is the natural polarity that comes together. So it's almost, this is a reveal, because if you just go through the buzzwords of narcissist, toxic, all these things, you will end up just attracting the same thing. Like, don't think of a purple elephant. That's your only target. It's all you'll be able to recognize without actually understanding the nuance. It's the equivalent of a man just saying, oh yeah, she's crazy, she's weird, she's a prude. You're not learning it. I've spent a lot of time learning about this so I could be short-term mating, right? As a man, which is our upfront program. And this is very key. If you feel that men are not disciplined by sleeping around, that is you not understanding men. Imagine a man coming to you and saying, wait, you want to talk and get to know each other? You are so emotionally undisciplined. Just repress that. Why do you need that? Just spread your legs. It's delusional. It would be a man who doesn't understand women. Now, as we talked about, if you are a French person, I think I mentioned this, trying to talk to a German person, you're going to be a lot more irritated if you're in a lot of pain, because it's going to be harder to translate. It'll be a lot easier to just talk to someone in French, right? So the more pain you're in, the harder it is to understand this difference, to understand you're dealing with someone very different from yourself. Now, the more feminine you are, the more naturally you'll be attracted to a masculine counterpart. It's not even, oh, I understand that he has a past. You'll actually celebrate the fact that he is a healthy man. That is the point, right? So as a man, almost the test is, on average, men's testosterone spikes on the 7th day, 145.7%, that men want short-term mating access almost with the least amount of investment. That is their ultimate goal. It's almost the equivalent of employers and employees. An employee wants to get paid the most amount. Employers want to pay the least possible while keeping their employees happy, right? These are the almost battling forces. As a man, he wants to sleep with you up front. As a woman, you want to make sure that his commitment and investment is real before doing that, right? Almost seeming opposing forces, and the meeting occurs somewhere in between, where love is created, almost where love is met. Okay, so as a man, the real truth is what he wants, right? There's no better sex for a man than basically sex with a stranger who he has to do the least amount of effort for. Now, of course, it'll be more enjoyable if he has to put more effort, technically, for the first time, because there's novelty and the dopamine of effort with not knowing whether you get the reward. They've shown variable reinforcement allows for the greatest release, basically, of pleasure. Okay, so that's the truth. But to project the way you experience sex is the way a man experiences sex is crazy, right? We are totally different bodies. We produce thousands of sperm. This is the equivalent of you being in menstruation and a man being like, you have cramps, you're in luteal, let's say. You have cramps, who cares? We said we're going for a jog. Get up and let's go. That would be crazy. You'd call that insensitive, lack of understanding, and that man really won't do well with women. The same thing will occur for you if you try to female code men, because a large part of it is being traumatized by a man that was like that you were naturally drawn to, and you didn't have the toolbook to tame him, right? Men want the good girl who becomes bad for him in the bedroom. Women want the bad boy who tames himself and she seduces to become a good man for her. This is the healthy polarity. The ones who are on the opposite side, the bad girls get the good boys, right? And no woman truly wants a sad boy. This is what we briefly touched upon, I think, earlier, which is that underlying a lot of the anger that you'll see externally from women is sadness. And externally, men will show a lot of sadness and removing themselves from the game. Underneath that is anger, that they feel powerless, right? So the point is, yes, as a man, short-term mating, a man who's able to turn himself on by getting women who turn him on, right? That he's able to do the act once a week. So that's the discipline that he's optimizing his body. A new woman, That is a successful man. This is what we're talking about. To be successful in life as a woman, it's not about making money. Why would you be male coding your life and then saying you're fighting the patriarchy? You're trying to copy men, which means they're so deep up in you that you forgot your feminine virtue, right? You making money doesn't make you successful. That means you are a failure at getting a man to do what men do for you. That is the truth, right? So success in life has to do with being able to get what you want, and the path to that being at peace with it, being okay with it, the energy invested in it, right? It not being extremely difficult or painful or inauthentic or performative for you, but getting what you want and being not in pain and happy, which is decided. Our morality does not need to be chosen from different ancient philosophies. It's embedded in us biologically. So as a man, we want these short-term mates, and then the woman pulls us out of that, right? And it's our job as a man, if we're smart enough, once we have enough access to women, to put ourselves in that environment where we can be pulled out. But we don't need to castrate ourselves, because we'll have a fine life just sleeping with a ton of women and having kids left and right. That's the truth. So as a woman, though, you don't want that. Okay, you can do that. You're choosing not to do that because your biology works differently. We can talk about it scientifically. This is the equivalent of women sometimes who are, let's say, a virgin. You can see like Christian talk and stuff like that. And they're like, I want a man who's also that. No, you don't. That's impossible, because it's not a virtue, a man who can't get women, since that's what he wants, right? You want him to repress himself in the way you don't repress yourself. You are actually in abundance by not giving your body because you feel good about yourself. Women who don't feel good about themselves use that as a currency to try to get male affection, right? No woman just wants to sleep with a stranger on average up front. That's not how you work, because you are different biologically. You have far more oxytocin, the bonding hormone, and estrogen than men, right? When you lactate, child rearing, when you have an O, testosterone inhibits the effects of oxytocin. On average, when men then commit, testosterone drops on average 21%, which makes them more close with you and affectionate. But that's not even how men fall in love. Oxytocin is the predominant hormone how women fall in love. We're going to talk about this more, but this is first just the lesson to say it is not a weakness. You don't need to make it a strength again. You don't need to subscribe to anything. This is not me telling you what to do, but this is holding a mirror to you to say, do you truly want to sleep around? Does that make you feel good? If it does, okay, do it. All right, that's great. Do it. I know it doesn't, because you can't fight biology, okay? So I'm giving you a chance to look at that and say, okay, someone's saying this and it resonates. Okay, what do I do now with it? As a man, it feels good to sleep around. They've shown it that for every man a woman sleeps with, it lowers her ability to pair bond with the man. No, not the same for men. For men, it makes them feel better. The most upset men in the world are the ones who do not sleep around. That's why you'll always see the guys who pew the schools. They're never dudes who are getting women. Ever. It is not the case. Now, if you get some hyper testosterone guy who's, again, there's always a range. If you have too much testosterone, just like too much estrogen in women, it causes a lot of problems, right? And if you go too high in testosterone, like the steroid bodybuilder types who just take supplements and things, TRT, etc., the IQ then decreases, right? So there is a Goldilocks zone where it's a sweet spot. If you go too high, then those men can be aggressive too. If you go too low, those guys are the vulnerable narcissists who will become violent also, right? You want above average testosterone, just like you want above average estrogen in a woman, but in the healthy range. So my point being that you have a difference in terms of how you bond. Every time you bond with a man physically, oxytocin, a lot of it is released. And then when he doesn't stay over, if he doesn't keep investing in you, it breaks your body's ability to create that as easily. Men do not experience that. We do not have oxytocin levels nearly at the same level as women. Testosterone almost suppresses that. You will know that. A man can sleep with you and then just leave or pass out after, because we release a lot of prolactin also, which makes us sleepy, which is why you shouldn't trust a man who touches himself, because self-soothing like that releases 400% less prolactin. It's far less healthy bonding mechanisms than psychologically saying I can get a woman anytime I want digitally for women who would never probably pick him, which is embarrassing as a man, right? So it desensitizes a man. You shouldn't trust those men, because those men on average, this gets to the next point actually. So let's start with the seasons of love, which is to start the process at the early stage, the first thing that draws us to each other, phase one, is testosterone and estrogen, right? Men are looking for estrogen cues in women. Women are looking for testosterone cues in men. Now, of course, women have testosterone too. It is part of their sex drive, etc. Men also have estrogen in them, right? But on average, the levels are far different. Men, a teenage boy has 17 to 20 times the amount of testosterone as the average woman, okay? So at the beginning, we're looking for these cues in each other, and the cues are different, right? Healthy testosterone in a man, the women, and they've shown this study too, when women are choosing, who would you choose for short-term mating for one night? They will choose men who have more visual cues of testosterone. They'll have a deeper voice. They'll have a brow ridge, a jawline, height, muscle development, all these types of things, right? This is the same thing with ovulation, as long as you're not on hormonal birth control, because that screws up your ability to judge a man accurately. Women will choose the best genes, meaning a fit man, deep voice, aggressive, that type of stuff. Then when they're outside of that window and they're looking for a more paternal figure who will invest and rear and help take care of the children, they like lower testosterone men who have a higher pitched voice, who have more doe eyes, who have less masculine features, because that lowers the chance of infidelity at a very biological level. These are pheromones, at least when it comes to the cycle. Okay. So your goal, again, Goldilocks zone, is you want both. You want the smart guy who's hot. More important, though, is his mind, his problem-solving ability, which also requires testosterone, which increases analytical ability up to a point, right? Gives you visuospatial ability, makes you more dominant, makes you a better problem solver, makes you have a better mood, right? It's a mood booster as well, testosterone. But at too high a level, it's an immunosuppressant. Those guys start balding, all that type of stuff, right? So there's lines here. But you'll notice this with younger women, for example, who did not have a good paternal figure in their life. They will look for the shallow cues of testosterone, meaning this guy is hot, he's tall, all these types of things. You don't not want those things, but using that as a predominant source, versus if you find the equivalent cohort of young women who were raised with strong patriarchal fathers who ran the household, those women will always prioritize money in a man, right? Rich men get female models. Okay, it's not male models getting female models, maybe the dumber ones on average, but money wins for men at a shallow level because it's resource providing. It's a natural male language to solve the external world, not to get hot. Okay, nowadays, back in the day, it was pure brawn. Biggest was the baddest, right? But eventually, even in monkeys, they outsmart lower animals because of intelligence, the IQ. And a smart man can get fit. A fit man can't just add gray matter to his prefrontal cortex, okay? So prioritizing that is very important. But again, it's a reflective exercise. If you see yourself not prioritizing that, it's something to ask in yourself, because we are always drawn to the polarity. Just like the angry woman will like the sad boy, the older woman who might feel invalidated that she's not getting the attention for when she was younger, she's now self-sufficient. She's outsourced her femininity to a man, so she will prioritize looks in him, like men do at a healthy level in women, right? Because they're fertility cues of, will she be a good mother and have healthy offspring? Yes, a man's sperm matters, but the time frame in which he can have children is far greater than a woman. You can find a 70-year-old man, Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, who can have kids. Is it advised? No. You'll never find a 70-year-old woman who's pregnant. Okay, it's just not possible. Menopause. So, point being, there is differences. You do want to optimize having children in your mid-20s to basically mid-30s max. Honestly, it's 32 after that on average. Again, if you're a healthy 35-year-old, you can have a better chance than a psychoactive substance addicted 25-year-old. Okay, but the point is, on average, you want to capitalize on biologically healthy frames. And yes, you on average don't want to be having kids with men who are in their 50s, because that will also cause defects, right? So the point being is, you want deep investment from men. And this is a reflective exercise. If you are drawn to the younger man, the one you're mothering, etc., he's hot though on paper. Men want women younger than them. The only reason they go older for serious investment. Remember, as they say, women like to say, men are so easy. Yeah, to sleep with. Not to get a ring on your finger or actual investment. Like, try to do that and then you'll see how hard it is. Okay, that's the equivalent of how hard it is for most men to sleep with women, which is why it's a virtue when men are able to sleep with women. A lot of women only talk to those types of men, the player, so they start to think every man can be a player. It's super easy. It's like, no, you're ignoring all the guys who can't be a player by choice, which you should. As they've shown across history, about 50% of the male species never even procreated. They were just too weak. They failed. It might have been bad luck, all this type of stuff, but that is the truth. Across species, even in walruses, in humans, 20% of the men sleep with 80% of the women, and I'd argue 20% of the women get the emotional attention and investment of 80% of the men, okay? So these are reflective exercises where if you are in that polarity and you've taken on a lot of stress, you've had to put down your emotions and it's increased your cortisol, chronic stress. There's a lot of dopamine, testosterone. Eventually it's depleted your oxytocin and nurturing ability. Of course you're going to be drawn to the soft, supple boy who's like, oh, I go for an older woman, etc. That's natural. That's the polarity. He needs a caretaker, basically. And you are doing that because you took yourself in survival mode. So, of course, he fits that narrative, but it'll never hit the right spot for deep polarity. You want a man older than you who sees you as a younger woman to him. Then some will argue, but these older men are going to come with trauma. Yes, but then a younger man could say you're coming with trauma relative to a younger woman, right? So I'm saying you want to pick and choose where you want your story to last. Do you want a short-term fling with a man you don't respect, right? Maybe. Okay, you do that. Biologically, it won't feel great for you. For moments it may, right? But you want a man to invest in you. So the point being that the first thing you should be judging is his mind. So at the beginning phase, you are judging these testosterone cues in a man, and that can be his charm, his ability to solve problems in the world. At a shallow level, his resources, the amount of money he has. At a basic physical level, whether he's taller than you. Women don't have a deep physical type. It's tall, dark, and handsome. Yes, there are polarities in terms of biochemical attraction. If you're a high serotonin woman, you will like a dopamine man. If you're a high testosterone woman, you're going to like the softer, more feminine man. Sure. And that does translate. The people who think about personality is not largely determined by biology is hilarious. Like, obviously, a higher testosterone guy is going to have certain physical features. You think it doesn't translate to physicality? It makes no sense, right? There is, and I've talked about this in the episode 5 if you want to go watch it, about the Myers-Briggs and things like that is one parameter with which you can make these causal links. I mean, just like something simple like androgen exposure at a prenatal level, testosterone exposure makes your second toe longer than your first in women. And I'm like, those women will be more masculine and more dominant. You could do it. That's why I always look at a woman's feet. You got to do it. Okay, I don't even like feet, but you got to do it. So this is the point. You know what? I like feet. I like everything. Why not? It's a human body. You got to do it. So first stage, testosterone and estrogen. Man's looking at those fertility cues. Is she young? Is she hot? Right? Does she look healthy? Does she have good skincare? Which is why it's always face card, then booty, peach, then the cherries. And there's only so much you can do for the cherries. I've read there's some techniques online. For your face, really don't do all the products, if anything, that makes it worse. But I've heard the basics. It's going to be a little vitamin C, I think some B5, the hyaluronic acid, whatever it is. You understand, not too much sun exposure. That's for women. Get your skincare right, because your face, and with not so low body fat. The gym girls, I'm telling you, they're hyper stressed. They're very masculine, very combative. That's why I always maybe attack them more in my platform, because they are so masculine in terms of how they interact, them and the career women and women who have slept around, right? It's different types of chaos, but it's all masculine versions. And I'm like, their bodies may look good on Instagram. I've slept with every version of them. The Pilates girls' bodies are by far the best, the yoga girls. So be assured, do not go to a gym. Cancel your membership as a woman. If you're doing classes with other women, that's fine. But you don't need to be around that steel and that huge masculine environment and the blaring music, please. Get a yoga mat, hang out with some girls, go to a park, and carry the equivalent weight resistance of how a baby would feel or a young child. Okay, that's all the muscle you need, please. I don't understand women who try to get jacked. I'm like, you're always going to be weaker than a dude who's just basic strength. Like, what is the point? What are you training for? Are you so upset with your life that you need to turn your body off with discipline? Like, do you hate yourself? What are you doing? Just calm down, breathe, go take a nap. All right, God, it's so insane to me. But whatever, it's fine. You can do that too. Remember, you can do whatever you'd like. But these are reflective exercises. So men are going to look for that. So that's why the easiest way to up your value in a shallow level, and it's not shallow because it's so deep biologically, like we said, men are going to care more about a woman's past, women more about a man's future, because he has to provide on an ongoing basis. Men are not like, how's she going to be in 10 years? He's going to care, oh, was she doing coke 10 years ago? Because that's going to affect whether she'll create healthy children now. If men were in jail 10 years ago and now they're a millionaire who's sober and cleaned up, women don't care. If anything, that's a cool story of having a dark past. It's very different, okay? So the point being is, we're looking at these cues. The shallowest way that you can increase your value is just get hotter. Do your RDLs, do your Bulgarian split squats, whatever they are. Do your hip thrusts. just get a better booty and a better face. I'm telling you, the men that will be into you will increase hundredfold, thousandfold. Okay. It's like a man getting his money up. It's the easiest way, right? Or getting some influence or clout or whatever the crap it is. Okay. Because that's an indication of power, is what it is. This is like the feminine power almost. It's your attractive ability. It gets all back down to mating, is all what it shows, which shows if a man had a choice to, and this is actually, you can test a man on this. If it's like, you can be 2 inches taller or you can have $1 million more. The men who choose the 2 inches taller don't understand women. Okay. Now, if they're already rich and smart and then they're like, okay, I want to raise that so I can differentiate. Yeah, sure. Okay. Maybe that. But I'm like, on average, the difference is always going to be money for men. Okay. As an upfront trade. So there's that. That's the first part, the first phase. You're drawn in by those cues, okay? And it is different. Women are less visual than men. That's why they read literary smut. Men are far more visual, and they're watching digital porn, most of them, all the time, which is unfortunate. So that's number one. Then we move into what you all may know as the honeymoon phase, right? This is the rose-colored glasses. The predominant hormones here are dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, the epinephrine system, adrenaline. There's a lot of hormones here, right? They're all kind of playing together. But these three hormones, as neurobiologists have seen it, it's very well documented that they're very core to the process in both men and women. And if anything, it will have a deeper impact on a woman because women have fewer dopaminergic receptors than men, meaning you handle dopamine worse, okay, which is novelty, change, effort. And dopamine is tied to, let's say, gambling. It could be cocaine, it could be drugs, sex, all this type of stuff releases a ton of dopamine. And the effort to get something increases dopamine more than the release during the reward. Okay, these receptors are basically getting filled. There's a release through your system. And what they've shown is, for example, just a quick segue, is that variable reinforcement, when a man doesn't know whether he's going to be able to get a date with you or not, that increases it even further. Intermittent reinforcement. That doesn't mean you contrive it, but naturally, if he has to match your flow, he has to impress you. He doesn't know whether he's going to get it in or not to see you. And they've shown, obviously, if they've shown in rats, for example, if you switch the probability to 80-20 or even 60-40, where it's 60% that it's probably going to happen, 40% not, doesn't create as much of a peak. The literal peak is when it's 50-50, when they truly do not know which way it's going to go. Releases the most amount of dopamine, and that's what gets a man attracted. That's what gets a woman attracted. Women, let me put it this way. If you go on a first date, that's why I say do not do a dinner first date. Do not do some axe throwing or hike because that's releasing a lot of dopamine and it will affect you more. Men have more dopamine receptors. They can handle it better. They're more used to that world. So I'm like, if you frazzled yourself with a lot of travel, sleeping with men and all those types of things, your dopamine system is going to be afraid that you're going to need higher octane stuff like a man. You're going to say, I need this, I want it to be a real, you'll conflate it that I need real investment from a man. I'm like, a man's investment for a quality man is his time. He's going to be able to have far more money in his life than he is going to be able to have time. You can't buy time. You can make more money. So if you get a man's time, right, the time of a man who's not ambitious, lives at home with his mom and works at Wendy's and doesn't want to change his life, that time's worth basically nothing, right? Money's a lot for that guy. For a man who's made money, his time is his valued asset. That's why I say men are busy, women aren't. You have to manage your energy. He has to manage his time. So your date should be low dopamine, not a lot of dinner where you're falling in love with the food, not some hot air balloon where you're falling in love with the sights. You have to live with the man. So you got to talk to him. You got to see how he leads, what he asks about you, if he stimulates you. So the point is dopamine, this phase is where the attraction is created, right? This is beyond the quote unquote lust phase. Now, serotonin is, again, women synthesize this more poorly than men. Men synthesize it 52% better. The mood hormone. That's why they get less stress. That's why they use antidepressant less. It's not because, they just repress their emotions. They're better at repressing emotions. They can handle that better. They have less variety and variability in their emotions. They experience less negative emotions than women. This is not a weakness. This is understanding yourself. This also means you're able to be more nurturing on the other side. Everything comes with its polarity, okay? So you will have so serotonin is going to be very important. then norepinephrine, it's going to create this almost OCD hyperfixation, rose-colored glasses. I want to know every detail about them. Anxiety, panic in the stomach, the butterflies in the stomach. I can't stop thinking about them, obsessive thoughts, etc., right? This is an important part of relations. Some people will automatically say, it's limerence, twin flame. No, you idiots. It's hormones. It's biology. It's not a soul tie. It's energy exchange in terms of, biochemical energy, and the energy effect is different. Like we talked about sex, it does not affect men like it affects women. The inverse of that is if you have a man who emotionally invests deeply in a woman, breaking up from him affects him far worse than it affects a woman. Men, on average, fall in love once, okay? And then they never get over that girl. Women will alpha widow, they call it, meaning you're widowed, you're broken by the alpha you sleep with, and you'll keep needing a more and more toxic guy to feel anything. But you guys can switch more easily. That's why women deal with breakups better. Across animal species, females and other species sometimes do infanticide and get rid of their kids so that they can be in heat again for a competing alpha male, if that alpha male gets kicked out of the tribe or pack, etc. Okay? So this is why also as a single mom, you don't advertise your children to another man because he's not going to want to take care of the seed and sperm of another man. That's cuckery, okay? So on average, you want to take care of your kids and then create a new kid with him. The point is you want to separate those two things. Of course, he's not going to be destructive with your children on average, because on average, the guy who will date is not going to be the most masculine. So he'll probably be more sympathetic to it. But I'm just saying, if you want to appeal the most masculine of the men who are going to date you, your kids are your kids. Okay. And that ties to legacy building. We'll talk about that. But so dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine. Okay. Now, this is almost a stressful state. And this is the whole equivalent to golden retriever, black cat and stuff. I'm like, in the courting phase, men should be anxious. Men should be like the golden retriever. They should be figuring out how to impress you and break into your world. Okay? Now, you're going to be excited about what to wear, what to dress, etc., how to look, all this type of stuff, what to say, understanding him. But it is still a slower burn for you because he's got to put in the investment to break into your world. You are like a black cat. You're tending to yourself, licking yourself with your girlfriends. You don't know whether this dog is worthy of being in your space, okay? So the man should be anxious. Now, men are naturally more avoidant than women. So sure, he's not going to come to you and be like, I didn't know whether to take us here or here. He's going to manage it, but in his head, he is problem solving, figuring out how to break into your world, okay? And he should feel that anxiety. And this is a key point, which actually I think I talked about. I talked about that at the final segment. So we don't have to get into that. But these are the key hormones in this honeymoon phase. Now, they've shown couples 20 years later that look at a picture of their sweetheart from years ago have the same level of release during the honeymoon phase if they are what they call like almost this black swan, if they are in a truly loving relationship, right? So it's not the honeymoon phase has to end. It transfers and translates into different paths as the seasons mature, okay? Just like you dress differently in the summer and winter, love has its seasons. And understanding it is so key to not sabotaging it and then finding yourself in the same pattern over and over again. And then your body is actually feeling upset with yourself, right? Self-esteem. It's like, I can't make myself happy. So then it may feel short-term easier to join a community of being like, let's blame the men. But what is all that energy going towards? It's going towards the very thing that hurt you in the first place, which came from desire and need. So I'm like, let's get back to the source. Let's heal this, right? People talk about journeys endlessly. Oh, it's about the journey and learning. I'm like, journeys without destination are pointless. If you don't get to the destination, it's all cope, okay? When you wake up and you go outside for a walk, I mean, maybe walking and seeing random things is the goal, but that's still a destination. If you don't pull that off, there is no journey. So we want to get you to the destination. That defines the journey, okay? So this is kind of the honeymoon phase. Now, after that, we get into what is, so essentially this is the key though. You don't want the man who touches himself because those types of men, like I said, they are most likely to be a wolf in sheep's clothing. They will sneak around. They will follow the OF girls and all that stuff and DM them on the side and stuff because they are in a world of repressed sexuality. I'm like, you should be turned off by a guy who's touching himself and not sleeping with women. The only women on average who get triggered by men sleeping with women are women who use their own bodies as currency to try to attract men. So they say, oh, he can fall for those women, because that's how they try to attract women. So it's a cognitive dissonance that they project out that, oh, he's easy, he's undisciplined. Undisciplined men don't get to sleep with women because they stay poor in their mother's basement. It takes a lot to learn how to get a woman to give her whole body to you. It takes a lot, okay? Especially the men who are direct with them and more honest, etc. The ones who lie and say, baby, I love you and all that stuff. That's weakness. That's being scared of a woman, right? which is like what they'll say on dating apps, right? And I did this a decade ago. They always tell men, lie about your height, right? So they always say add 2 inches. I would do 6'2". I'm 6 foot. Would that get me more matches? Maybe, probably. There's going to be some dumb girls who filter on that, even though they're all shorter than me on average, right? And I think there was only one girl in real life who was 5'11 and a half who said, wait, you seem more like you're 6'1". The only one who called it out. Maybe others thought it, etc. But once they experienced my masculine presence or energy, it didn't matter. I still betted all of them. It did most of them, right? It didn't matter. But do I do that now? No, because again, this gets to alignment. I turned that off a long time ago because what does that do in my own head? It says, if I don't do this, I wouldn't have been able to pull this off. That's you telling yourself you're not enough. This is the illusion of basically smoking as well. Some people smoke up to sleep at night. It lowers my anxiety. I'm like, it's creating a codependence that I need this in order to lower my anxiety, which creates anxiety and dependence, right? So the point is authenticity. I don't have to do acrobatics in my head. If I see a woman who then matches with me or talks to me or responds to my DM, I'm like, all my shit is out there now. You want to get away from competing with other women, and women don't like to think competitively, but you're gossiping, you're catty. You know that men are deciding between other women, just like you're deciding between other men, right? So the way you overcome that is by being authentic. There's no competition for someone being exactly like you, right? But then being you has to be good enough. You have to know your value. The women who have been single for over a year, post 20s basically, or in your 20s and above, while dating, it's either because, one, you're going for guys who think they can do better than you, or you're not putting yourself out there enough, which means you don't want it enough. And that, again, is a reflective exercise. I'm not here to tell you, don't you want love? Come on. It's just a mirror to be like, why don't you want it a lot, right? If I took away food from you for a week or something, you'd be starving. You'd hopefully fight for it and be like, I want to get food no matter what. Some people might not have that will, and you'll just give up. That's true. And then this is just a mirror to that. Hopefully this can spark some deeper parts in you to fight for yourself and the beauty of what can experience in this world. But these things take energy, right? It's easier to put toothpaste out of a tube than back in. Your room never goes from disorganized to suddenly organized. Entropy works in one direction. All of life is basically a fight against pain. You experience hunger, then you go get food. You experience a desire, which is a lack of having that thing, and then you move towards it. That is not weakness. People who talk about abundance mindset, that is about your mindset that you have the ability to get what you want and you don't need to stress about being in some perpetual state of scarcity. But it's not, there's no such thing as a lack. Lack and the avoidance of pain is what drives every organism on this earth. It's that you want to frame it as abundance of, I am going to be able to fill my needs because I am capable and I am enough. I am worthy of getting what I want, which I've noticed that too. For sleeping with women, the more entitled I am, like I deserve this, the more sex I get. It's the truth. Women are givers. They want to give to the man who they feel makes them feel safe enough that he's worthy of being given to. When a man is like, hey, as much as they'll talk about like, he should ask, when you get approached by a guy you hate, then it's all about consent. Why did he not ask me if he wanted to move in closer, etc.? But if it's a guy you like, you want him to lean in for the kiss, right? You want him to initiate that. So I'm like, the more nervous men are, I get so many women who complain to me, I like when a guy's a little rough, when he chokes me, when he like kisses me, during missionary, like all this type of stuff. And it's like, they get so pissed when the guy asks for, can I do this with you? They hate it when it's a guy they don't like, obviously, right? So, I mean, ideally, you're not even in those positions to have that, but there are guys nowadays who will do crazy stuff, so you got to watch out for those guys. But the point is, you want a man who wants to take what you're willing to give. So you want to put yourself in positions where you feel the natural desire to give, which will only come for a man you respect, okay? So back to this phasings is that you don't want the man who touches himself. You want the man who can get women, who can sleep with women, because you are not going to see yourself as equal to them. That is not, if he cares about women, why is he taking advantage of them? These are consenting adults, okay? Not everyone's going to offer equal value. Honestly, I say as a woman, if you're going to sleep with a guy, make sure you get the guy. If not, you are losing in that equation. That's the truth. As a man, if he dates you for 1 year and you don't do anything physical with him, totally your prerogative, and then you go sleep with another guy, he loses a year of his time and his resources, right? So there's risk on both sides. But the way you offset the risk is, this is the phasing. So first, you go through this early, you do this lust phase, then there's this courting dopamine phase. He should be sleeping with other women. Now, I see a lot of women who are like, I guess I can tolerate that. Or it's like they give permission to him, etc. I'm like, no. this is like once in a while you find out what your guy is eating, right? What he's doing with his day and stuff. It's like food. Sex is like food for a man. They're going to get wet dreams like you don't. We create thousands of sperm. We have epididymal hypertension. We have blue balls. You do not experience that like we do. You experience heat when you're ovulating. Do you quickly sleep with the guy? No. It just makes you, of course, it makes you more desirous to consecrate that with the man you like. Women have more nerve endings down there. You enjoy sex. You can have multiple back-to-back O's. You enjoy it more than men with the man you like. Remember, it's almost the inverse. The more I don't know a woman and the more almost anonymous the situation, the more it turns me on as a man. That's the truth, sexually. That's the real truth. That's for every man on earth, whether they'll tell you that or not. You know that stuff, okay? This is why men are thirsting over women they barely know and things like that, because if they actually pull that off, it would be like a fantasy. That's the truth, okay? Now, your goal is almost to convert him. Your goal is almost to feminize him and get him anxious in this early phase, right? He's masculine enough to pursue you and not crumble under the anxiety, but he is experiencing depth through you, which creates attachment, which now gets to the point that in your dating phase, if I were advising my daughter or if I'm talking to a girl, and I know this from my own experience, if she talks to me, not immediately, oh, who did you sleep with today? How was it? How did it feel? I'm not saying you do a little check-in and get turned on by it or something, but it's a part of his life, okay? That is the truth. And the more open you are about it with him, I would know women who were not threatened by that, especially girls who haven't slept around, etc. They do not even see themselves as compared to the women I sleep with. And if I tell them random stories from it when I talk about my day and they're not fazed, if anything, they laugh and they hear about it because they know they're in a better privilege situation. They're the queen. I like them more. Every time I like them more. And this gets to the point that if you don't, where's all that aggression going to go? It's going to be taken out on you, or he's going to fake it, touch himself, resent you. And as they say, if you play hard to get with a man, he'll play hard to access after. Being that if you are only going to sleep with a man once he's committed to you, which is the healthy way to do it for a man who's in your league. If he's out of your league, a lot of women don't think they can deepen their value. Like the women I sleep with, they're not sleeping with me because they just want to feel used or something like that. They're sleeping with me for the chance to connect more deeply. Whether they pull that off is on them, right? The girls I pursue romantically, I'm not like, come over. That's not the first thing I say. For girls I'm not taking seriously, like girls friend zoning guys bang zone girls, I'm like, come over, because I'm not willing to take you on a date. That's the truth. And they are willing to take that chance, okay? The point being that he will take it out on you. So if you're going to sleep with the guy because you think he's out of reach or you feel comfortable enough with him and you're sure about this guy and you don't have commitment from him, I'm like, then sleep with him immediately. Do not delay it, because he will only resent that against you. I hear that from women. They're like, I finally gave him a chance, etc., but I was kind of bratty and resentful the whole time. I was pushing him away, and then I finally slept with him, and then he disappears after because he is pissed off that basically you held out from him that long when you didn't require commitment from him. That is the point. If you do it the healthy way and you give him none of your body until he commits to you, that's the right way to do it. But you can't just hold that as a definitive rule, because there are differences in what people think each other offer and value, right? If you try to hold it, I never sleep with the guy on the first night, okay, that's totally fine. But there's going to be a lot of guys who say, okay, I'm not willing to take you on a date though. I don't like you enough. And that's okay. You can move past that. That's fine. Or you can say, no, I want to show more of my value to him, or I'm going to deepen my value to attract him more, or I'm going to sleep with him. But if you're going to make that choice without commitment, I'm saying do it sooner than later. That's the point. I always like those girls more. I get it. You could say, oh, but you haven't ended up with them. Still, this is a gradient of emotion in the sense that if there were girls in my head who I was not committed to, and eventually I slept with them after seeing them 3 times or something, I'm like, after that, I like them way less, because I'm like, you did this whole song and dance to eventually give it to me without the commitment. I'm like, you should have done it on the first day, and then I would have felt less tension. This is the whole equivalent of women saying stress men out. No. Stressing men out will make them not like you. That should be obvious. It's that it is stressful. We're now getting into the next phase. We'll talk about it. It's vasopressin. But let me actually pause this so the audio doesn't screw up, and then we're going to redo it. We have gotten now to the phase after. Yes, so if I were advising my daughter, it would be like, get as much time as you can get with this guy and do not give him physical. That is the truth. And he won't be dissatisfied because he's going to be sleeping with who he wants. Now, the test is, and as he should, because you're not ready to sleep with him, so you can't take care of him in that way, nor should you if you are in this courting period. let him sleep with women. Now, the risk, I would also tell her, if he emotionally invests in any other woman, then you cut him immediately. Okay, and I'll say it's easier for you to do that because you haven't sensorially invested in him. At most, yeah, you showed up on a date and these types of things, but you are not giving your full sensory energy to him because you are protected. You're not kissing him. I also say that, which is that if you're going to kiss a guy, that works really not in your favor if you're not willing to go all the way. This is like people grinding at the club. I never understand it. Like, why would I want to touch your booty behind a jeans layer? If I'm going to touch you, I want all of you, right? I'm not going to kiss a girl. Kissing doesn't do as much for a man as it does for a woman. It's just going to make a man tunnel vision into, I want to get to final climax. For a woman, again, the dopamine released is going to create a huge surge and make you more attached. Now you're more attached. He's tunnel visioned into sleeping with you. You're going to want more intimacy, emotional intimacy with oxytocin attachment coming from this kiss. And he's going to be doing less of that because he's going to get more sexual and you're going to feel even more betrayed, right? It's going to just cause tension. So I'm like, don't kiss a guy. Now, that doesn't imply when you kiss a man, a lot of saliva is exchanged, a lot of genetic information. So if you're in bed with him or you're about to kiss him and you're ready to go all the way and something doesn't feel right, listen to your body, cut the whole thing, right? But I'm just saying the whole like slow burning physicality, I'm like, bruh, if you're going for masculine men, go all the way or don't do anything physical is the safe way. So I would tell my daughter, if he emotionally invests anywhere else, you cut him. Now, people will then ask, how do you know? There's men who have these 2 girlfriends and they dated both of them and stuff. Okay, first of all, those men are on average dealing with women who were doing the repressive crap, which is like, you better not be seeing anyone else and all that stuff. So then they have to hide. If you're going to act, this is the point. People are responsible for themselves for lying, okay? If a man lies to you, cheats on you, that is his fault. That is a negative in him. But that does not imply you might be co-enabling it and making it harder for a man to be honest with you, okay? Now, it's still his responsibility at the end of the day, but the point is if I yell at you on a date and I'm like, you better not be one of those idiots who says blue is your favorite color. But anyway, what's your favorite color? And let's say it's blue. Are you more motivated to say blue or maybe say, it's kind of like a greenish turquoise? Probably that, right? Now, again, I could be like, you're responsible, you lied to me. But am I doing any favors for myself? This is the equivalent of women asking things like, what are you looking for? What a dumb question, right? Because what is a man going to say? I want to bang you, use you, and never talk to you again. I'm looking forward to... Why would he say that on average? That's not going to get a woman to sleep with him. Now, then you could argue, what the heck? He shouldn't be able to do that. He should be honest. Yeah, I agree. That's not going to always happen. That's the truth. And if anything, I'm very direct with women and that gets me more sex. But most men don't figure that out, okay? So they're going to do a little gaslighting and stuff like that. But you guys are falling for the gaslight because you want to be love bombed, is the truth. You're so lonely, you want to feel like this guy's fully obsessed with you when you've talked to him for 30 minutes just because you think you're hot enough. There's a lot of hot girls out there, okay? So you should almost question, have I done enough to get him to like me deeply? So I hedge myself like this in the sense that if I'm going to meet a girl properly for a date, which I haven't done in years, but I will research her in depth. I will find whatever I can online. I'll go through all of her Pinterest, her public Spotify, just to understand her so I could stimulate her better in person, right? That's the truth. I want to understand her. I'm obsessing anxiously to make her happy. That's the truth. So, and still then won't hit the spot fully, right? Because I'll still have to learn her in person, but I do my homework such that if I meet her on a 12-hour date and we're talking a long time, etc., and finally I feed her after we've done timing, etc., my time investment, if she then after that is like, yeah, I think I'm still going to be going on dates this later week, I have the internal calm to feel like I don't want you, only because I feel like I did enough. If I didn't feel that, and I'm like, are you serious? You're going to do that? If there's any inadequacy I feel in myself, it causes tension. Again, this is not being in flow. I'm like, you need to get to a flow state. If I talk to a girl for 30 minutes and I myself believe I'm epic, I do, right? But she doesn't know that necessarily. We had 30 minutes of conversation. And then I see that she's still getting DMs from guys, or she's like, yeah, I'm still on the dating apps. Do I feel threatened by that? I'm like, no, I got to win her over. If I see that she's doing something physical with another guy, I'm like, yeah, no chance, I'm out, right? So that's the equivalent of if you do something physical with a guy and then he's taking a different girl to meet his mom, dunzo, you're screwed, right? That's the worst. And this is a painful thing, honestly, being eventually you get physically denied then, right, by the guy. And there's nothing scarier than a woman in heat who gets rejected, meaning because men are easier to sleep with, right? Just like women are easier to emotionally stimulate. If you want to sleep with a guy and he says no to that, how brutal of a rejection is that? Which is why a lot of women in long-term relationships or marriages, first the emotions go and then the physicality goes. And when the physicality goes, that's like the death knell, right? That's like the final insurance layer, the most primal thing between man and woman. And that's why a lot of times then they go for shallow. I've seen so many women after their long-term relationship, I just want to feel not in a relationship for now. I want my peace, all this stuff. And then they sleep with guys. They get used functionally, right? Thinking that's a healing process. It's actually just pain from their own choices of the wrong man and feeling like he didn't love me enough. He dropped the ball, right? So that they give themselves easily to men who just want to bang them, which is devaluing themselves even further. Because if you really were able to read those guys' minds of how many women they'd sleep with instead of you, you would not want to sleep with these guys, be assured, okay? You're irreplaceable in that sense, right? Because what did he really get turned on by? Your deep personality that you shared when you were just trying to feel physically validated? No, you guys probably didn't even get into that level of depth, right? So anyway, that's a separate point to say that, oh yeah, we did the stress hormone. We're going to do vasopressin in a second. But my point is about sleeping with men, right? That you want to get his time investment. Okay. And the whole physical thing is when you're ready to go physical, go full physical. So that's a separate point. But when you're getting a time investment from a man, I see this a lot with women, which is like, he's taken me on a date once every week for the past month. I don't feel like things are progressing. I'm like, no, you do not understand. That is advancement. That is progressing because it is the equivalent of this. What is worth more, $10 today or $10 in a month? Let's say $100 today or $100 in a month. $100 today because you can invest it and let's say get an 8% return. Let's just say it's a monthly return. So then you'll have $108 at the end of the month versus $100 then, right? Compound interest. The equivalent is a man's excitement to see you the first time on a date is going to be very high novelty. For him to be willing to do even the exact same date on a fourth date, the exact same date, okay? He has to make up the depreciation in value. It's almost like the inverse. For that $108 to be getting that here, right? To be worth that, what they'll call the net present value. You basically have to discount the cash flow, whatever it is. He has to like you more. So if he's doing even the equivalent date, the same dinner spot for an hour of conversation, the fourth time, that means he likes you more because he has to keep the same level of interest he had on the first date, which is naturally higher. So it's going down, 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 which means he had to have liked you more for it to be equal to see you again. So consistency itself is a win as a woman. Now, ideally, you want consistency and deepening, right? You want him to be sharing more of his underbelly, the hows and whys of his past, his emotional underbelly. You want him to create future plans with you that he acts on, not just fake promises. You see him working towards that. You want to tie into his legacy. We're actually moving into the next phase, but I really want to nail this point, which is that for sleeping with men, if I were telling a woman, I'd be like, get as much time as you can from him because he is getting attached to you. And to judge, yes, this was the final point, to judge whether he's emotionally investing in other women, right? I ended on that point about feeling closure and being in alignment with yourself, right? That you want to get to a place where you feel like you can walk away. And that's going to be emotional betrayal in a man. If he's just sleeping with women, it doesn't matter if you're getting the emotional investment. That means you're winning. Let him eat that. That's good. Hear the stories. That's great. Let him share parts of his life. That's fine, okay? You really shouldn't, if you're threatened by it, I don't know what to tell you. It probably means you're one of them. And I don't know what to say. Those women don't get the best outcomes. We can figure out how to heal that, etc. But it's first a reflective point I want to make. And for women, a large part of change is really just understanding. Okay, men need the action plan, etc. But for women, when they understand things, it automatically kind of changes their energy and behavior. So how do you know if he's emotionally betraying you or seeing other women, etc.? If he is investing emotionally in you consistently, he is not going to be able to do that literally on a time basis with several women. That is the truth. And you have to be the arbiter of that. This is almost the inverse of if you don't give a man boundaries and there's a way to express it. Like they say, women like men who say no, men like women who say yes. If he can't stand up to you, he can't stand up for you. The way you express your boundaries is by withdrawal when you don't like something. It's literally ABA training like a dog. When you don't like something, you do negative reinforcement, right? Negative punishment. not positive punishment. You do negative punishment, which is you remove the source of attention, which is your energy. And when he does well, you do positive reinforcement, okay? A lot of people do positive punishment, criticizing, hey, so like, I feel like you need to respect my boundary, or I just don't think I'm going to be able to see you. It's like, oh, annoying, right? Or they do negative reinforcement. You want to do positive reinforcement, negative punishment. Go look it up if you want examples, okay? But it's very basic training mechanisms. This isn't gamifying. This is human nature. It's understanding how things work, right? You don't talk to a child the same way you talk to a 50-year-old. You don't talk to a man the same way you talk to a woman. And honestly, these techniques will work in general. This is just understanding human nature more deeply. So if the boundary point is if you don't have boundaries for a man, which is expressed through withdrawal and then reinforcement when he does the right things, right? Then he'll just bulldoze. Of course, he's a man. He's going to take. And I won't even blame him for that, right? A lot of women will like to feel like a victim, which is like, he just slept with me and he said all these things. He got sex with you, a pretty woman. Sorry, good for him. I don't know what to tell you. Good for him. Okay, just like if you got a million roses from him in a poem and then you just block him, in the equation, you got more out of it. Your goal is not to be in this block situation, but in short-term mating, which is men's primary agenda up front, unless they fall for you, that is what he's going to want. You want long-term, right? So even blocking him after the roses wouldn't feel great for you. But if he stays obsessed with you, then that's you winning and him losing, right? This is like the orbiter male friends that a lot of you have, which is ridiculous. But the point is, so just like you need these boundaries essentially expressed classily, right? On the other side of that, it's that you have to hold the bar for increasing the depth. Meaning, if you are not more emotionally vulnerable than a man, I see a lot of women who are like, I need him to create a safe space so I can be emotionally vulnerable. I'm like, how is a man supposed to be emotionally vulnerable if you're not more vulnerable than him? You have to lead by example. This is the equivalent of expecting a man to be less physically vulnerable than you. You have to initiate the kiss. You have to lead and be like, hey, can you like make a move here? That would be crazy, right? He has to lead in that, and then you greenlight what's allowed. You have to lead on this, and then he'll greenlight basically how much of his emotions he's willing to open. So you have to ask him how and why questions, right? If it's earlier in the interaction, you see him closing off, you can ask who, what, where, when questions, right? If you ask about his past, that's deeper than asking about his future. If you ask an A versus B question, that's the easiest thing for a man to answer. If you ask a man an A versus B question about the future, that is the easiest thing for a man to answer. Would you rather be the king of Taiwan or Uganda? Simple question that a man can answer. Even that is more conceptual. Men are very sensory, right? Would you like to see me in this dress or this dress tomorrow? There's probably not an easier question a man could answer than that. Now, what's the hardest question that you can ask a man? Which is where you should be going. Because if he likes you, he will be able to he will answer that. And then you can judge his emotional depth. There's no such thing as an emotionally unavailable man. Okay? Men are more emotionally avoidant than women, but he will be available for someone. Okay? Just like there's no such thing as a physically unavailable woman. It just means she doesn't like you enough. All right? But there are such things as women who are not physically deep because they're too scarred by their trauma, etc. They can't bond deeply anymore. Just like there are men who are not emotionally deep. And you can find this out by doing the deep version, not just the dress question. Okay? So the deep question would be a how or why question about his past. Men don't think about their past like women do. They don't replay conversations. They're focused on the future and building, which is also what you're attracted to, a provider who can be on an ongoing basis, right? So you would ask a how and why question about his past, right? How do you think the way your father was with your mother affected you negatively in the past year where it comes to your work? That's an intense question. It's abstract. It deals with relationships. It deals with the family, with potentially guilt or inadequacy or powerlessness. It's a how abstract question. It's like a dude's gotta like you to answer that. If a chick asks me that, there's zero chance I'm answering that unless she's hot, basically. Unless I'm into her in some way, okay? Or I'll be like, ugh, I don't want to talk to you. Who the heck are you to spread my legs open? No, right? But if the least attractive, rudest woman on earth just sent me a picture of two dresses and said, pick one, it's not going to be hard for me to thumbs one up, Okay. Your goal is to go as deep as possible. This is what I mean by reverse boundary setting, which is almost water bending to depth. Now, if you are doing that with a man, I am telling you, he is not going to be emotionally investing in tons of women. He can't, because you're requiring more and more out of him. And you're not doing this for his sake. You're doing it for your sake. Remember, to judge his emotional depth, to see whether he has learned from things to create a good vision for his future. It does tie to his future and his vision, but it's not about, you're helping him almost tap into his potential. You want to see if he's resistant to that, because you are supposed to be better at understanding your past. You're supposed to already have healed any pain you've been through, etc. And of course, love heals also, yes, but he should be healing the external, which is, I didn't feel safe because I had to take on this stress and all this type of stuff. It shouldn't be like, I didn't understand why I wasn't able to feel this. I didn't understand why I didn't think I was enough. I'm like, bro, like, you do have to be more of the therapist for the man, just like he has to be more of the captain of the external world for you. He's your external therapist. You're the internal therapist. That's just the world. That's reality, okay? So I guess I'm going into prescription. I want you more to feel like I'm sharing my worldview. You can see it like that or not, but I'm talking about this from science. Okay. So see how it makes you feel more than anything, this episode. I think this is more of a reflective exercise than like, all right, I better start doing this. No. If you, for example, were trying to copy the prescription of exactly what I'm saying, you're still not going to end up with my exact results, right? You have to want it on your own. And we can talk about how you can realize that you want more and how to cultivate that, watching good art, romantic art, really not watching the negative stuff. I don't know if I talked about this yet, but just like men say no more and women say yes more, they're givers, people pleasers, etc. You want to test as a man, you would want to test what a woman has said no to, right? What has a woman said no to on the sensory side? Okay? Because that is almost the test of her weakness. Because if she said yes to those things, that's what creates the weaknesses in her. Yes to the wrong sensory experiences. Yes to an environment where people yelled at her. Yes to the wrong kind of guy who wanted to sleep with her without committing to her. All this type of stuff. For a man, you want to see what he said yes to emotionally. Okay? You know, I got fired from this job, and then I realized that I wanted to choose this life path, and I said yes, basically, to this vision, which I'm now doing. That's what you want to test. So that's a separate point, but the point being that if you are getting this depth from a man, and you are setting the almost need, because you are testing his emotional depth, right, his ability to co-create, basically, his potential, which does end up benefiting you. It almost helps a man reach his full potential. I think I talked about that in the final point about don't date broke men, but get a man while he's still in potential, but a man who already has access to women, or he'll just switch up for his type. But because he hasn't experienced it yet, and the chance of you being that upfront without him having access, large chance it's coming from physical starvation for a man, and you're emotionally starved, and that's how you guys get together, right? You overpay physically, he overpays emotionally. So I think I've made the point now about the sleeping with him type of thing, which is that you haven't slept with him yet. He's sleeping with whoever he wants. He's not emotionally investing in any of them, okay? And he's emotionally investing in you. Not just consistently, but you are requiring more depth because you are figuring these things out about him, okay? Now, finally, let's say he is falling for you. Men say that I love you before women do on average, but this is still early stage love. So let's say you're making the choice now, I'm ready to sleep with you, right? You first should never be calling for a title or relationship name from the man. Men have to emotionally escalate the relation. Women physically escalate in this sense. Men are the pursuers, so men will physically initiate with you, but you have to green light it, right? Women are the gatekeepers of sex. If a woman doesn't want something physical to happen, a man better respect that, right? He better accept that is the point. Doesn't need to respect it. He could say you're an idiot for not being okay with it, but he has to accept it. That's the law. He better do that, okay? Why would he want a woman if she doesn't want him? It's weird, but he should accept that if he has self-esteem and self-respect. So, but he will initiate because the sperm goes to the egg, but that's still you green-lighting it. Now, a man, you are proactively attracting, like the egg, attraction and investment from him, but he has to say, I want you to be my girl, or I want you to not see any other guys, or he should be scared that you're going to talk to other guys. He should be protective and possessive. This gets to now how men fall in love, which is vasopressin. So We're going to talk about that right after we get past this hurdle of deciding to sleep with him. So let's say you've oxytocin bonded with him in a lot of different contexts. See, oxytocin is more replenishable for women. It can come from a lot of sources, from your girlfriends, from seeing a golden retriever, right? They've done that study where if your partner touches you, oxytocin, and then a stranger touches you, it still releases oxytocin because he has pre-contextualized it. If a stranger touches you first and then your partner, it inhibits it. So it's very context dependent. So in different contexts, he's there for you when you are under duress and stressed. He has prioritized you against some of his other priorities, which makes you feel safe, etc. Right? Just literal quality time, some physical touch. You guys hug each other, releases a lot of oxytocin. Eye contact, oxytocin, right? So you've been feeling safe, all of this stuff. You're falling for him really in a very deep way. Now you're ready to sleep with him. Okay, it's kind of like Twilight with Bella and Edward, right? He's resisting sleeping with her. He's pursuing it, and then she finally is ready. And he's like, okay, when I switch into this mode, it's almost switching from the Madonna to the whore part, right? It's going to activate almost a different part of the cycle, okay? So then he sleeps with you. You're ready to do it. As soon as you're ready to sleep with him, he has cut off all other women. At this point, he is now saying, you are my woman because you are trusting me with your body. You now have my heart. And his heart has been falling for you the whole time, right? But his heart is not going to go the full way until you've given your full body. So you're not ready with your body. He's not ready with his heart, okay? So now you've said, I'm going to sleep with him. So now he cuts off all other women, honoring you and choosing you because now you're taking care of that need in him as well. What's going to happen now is the novelty of you is going to drop a bit, okay? Dopamine's going to be less. When men have an O, dopamine levels drop, right? The hunt is over a bit, post-nut clarity, whatever they call it. Testosterone drops and then restabilizes. A lot of prolactin releases, right? If you don't understand this shift that will occur, you're going to feel a massive drop of like, wait, he doesn't touch my shoulder as much. He's not as romantic, etc. When in his head, this is like a man setting a date with a woman, and then he sets the date, he meets her, and then he starts texting you less. Now, that's natural because as a man, he solved the problem of, okay, now she's in my orbit. I'm going to get back to building so I can take care of her, and I'm going to see her next week. Women will be like, oh my God, he's not texting as much. All the more reason you guys should not be texting a ton in the early stages. Or it's like, what is he building? He should hold his own boundary and not text as much. But if you're co-creating it, just like the lies, why aren't you judging him negatively for texting so much memes and stuff when I'm telling you you're going to experience the drop-off, right? So when you sleep with a man... there is going to be a drop in explicit affection and intimacy. This doesn't imply he gets immediately cold after. That would happen if you're in the short-term mating category. It means you didn't make it in time. But if he's fallen for you in the early phase part as much as he can in that part, it's not deep love yet. I'll explain that. But he will then, obviously, you'll stay over the night, right? His testosterone is going to be dropped, but then oxytocin. Remember, testosterone inhibits the effects of oxytocin. So his testosterone is dropped, he then will cuddle with you, etc. That's releasing oxytocin. So he's getting more bonded to you in a way that he couldn't prior, okay? Because you weren't sleeping with him. The second you sleep with him, and if he does it right, if he has experience, remember, with other women, and he really likes you and wants to make you feel good also, because that makes him feel powerful to have that influence over your body, he'll get you to have an O, right? And that releases a ton of oxytocin. This is like when women have children. Childbirth releases a ton of oxytocin, which is why women bond so deeply with their newborns, and men actually feel a little avoidant. If anything, there's sometimes tension because men are like, why am I not feeling what she's feeling? Understanding this all helps, okay? It prepares you. And then when men can play with their kids, that's how they bond, which gets to vasopressin. We're going to talk about that. But you sleep with him, a ton of oxytocin, and then women almost become more masculine in the sense that they'll become more kinky. They'll want to satisfy every one of his needs. It's almost like you become like a short-term kinkster, okay? And he's now long-term building. He's acting more stable and stoic. You are more frenetic. So it's almost like if he was initiating all the texts in the courting phase, now in this early post-coital phase, you are going to be texting more. So the honeymoon phase on average, they say the whole lust phase, right? Initial testosterone, estrogen, attraction, it can be a short period, a month to a year, etc., right? Just going back and forth. But then the honeymoon phase on average is 6 months to 2 years on average, okay? If it's much longer than that in the sense that you're not getting to deeper bonding and future goal integration, that's a bad sign. It's just an on and off, probably toxic, and you're not actually getting depth. If it's much shorter than that and you're trying to advance into, we're going to build a house together and all this stuff, you are not creating enough attraction. And I guarantee after you sleep with him, there's going to be whiplash in him. He might not even know. It's not going to feel manipulative. He'll just be like, oh, why don't I like her as much anymore? Okay. So you sleep with him, right? And now you've come online. You should be texting him and initiating more now in this phase, okay? And this is before, on average, they say the 5 to 7 year mark, which is when deep attachment occurs. So this is post honeymoon phase, after the initial lust phase. This is in that in-between period, okay? The bonding and a lot of times power struggle phase, okay? Because a lot of people don't understand this. This is almost testing your conflict resolution because the novelty has gone down. Women have to become proactive, right? A lot of women feel this whiplash because they've been courted in the early period and they're like, wait, why am I not getting courted now? You don't get to be courted for the rest of your life. Sorry, that's just not how it works. Everything's balanced. So now you got to turn up. You almost got to do the egg roll. You got to switch and be proactive. You have to have some novelty to attract him. You got to make sure there's a date night happening, etc. He should do the planning and things like that, but you got to attract it out of him. You got to integrate into his life. Okay, so you are initiating more your needs, things that you're feeling, etc., that you want, etc., not questioning the relationship about like whether you like me or not, all that stuff. Those inadequate things are things you have to deal with on your own. You should have gotten past that. If you're worried about the relationship, don't sleep with him, okay? Or be sure you're going to make it work. So you don't go to him for validation. You're going to figure it out. You've already signed up for it. Once you've slept with the man, you're his. I don't know what to tell you. That's just the truth, okay? Every woman I've slept with, I already have a piece of her. I'm a whore crux. I'm a whore cock inside all y'all. That's the truth, okay? So whatever, and they've shown that also when a man finishes inside a woman, right? Which I guess I don't really do, but that sperm affects the offspring of even future males that you mate with. So if a man sleeps with you, the first guy you've slept with, and he finished inside you, 6 years later and 22 dudes later, you have a kid with that guy, the imprinting of the genetics of that first man are going to be in that offspring. They've shown these studies. See, so again, another reason why women get affected by this. Men do not. There's a difference, okay? And that's not to put you down, etc. It's to make you more self-preservation, to understand your own body, okay? They always say men shouldn't speak on women's bodies. Well, sorry, consider this almost, it's not medical advice or like a doctor, but this is just science. I know how to read it. Just like you know things about men, I know things about women. Too bad. So actually, not too bad. Too good. You're welcome. Okay, so the point being that you've slept with him now, you've come online, you're being more proactive. During this proactive phase, you need to actively integrate. This is how you get a man who gets over his first love, etc. It is when you are integrated in a man building legacy that is different from what he's built. It's not just being like, how was your day? How was your meeting, babe, etc. Those guys will probably still be obsessed with their first love because they deeply vasopressin bonded. Now, this is the hormone to talk about. Vasopressin. It's so funny. Sometimes I see people in medical school, they still think vasopressin is an anti-diuretic hormone. It's also that, but they don't know how it ties to a relationship. This is like ChatGPT, which is why my relational intelligence platform that I'm going to create is going to change the world because, you know, ChatGPT has all of this open source information, but it's not trained in this insight basis, which is the genius part, which is, for example, vasopressin. Vasopressin is released. We said you don't stress a man out. Vasopressin is released by overcoming stress, not chronic stress in a man. That lowers his testosterone and his drive, his mood, all of that. But vasopressin is a deeper hormone than oxytocin in women. Oxytocin came about in the mammalian species, right? Or family, kingdom, whatever it is, in mammals. Vasopressin predates that in reptiles. It's a very deep hormone in men. Obviously, men have far more of it than women, okay? When men overcome struggle, when they used to hunt side by side with their brothers, releases vasopressin. So when they are figuring out how to problem solve to make you happy, vasopressin is being released. Another context, when you help him reach his goals, he comes home after a long night working and he has to stay up to finish a proposal. You make him his favorite meal and you give him a little back massage, and then he's able to perform better at the meeting. Who does he attribute that to? To you. Vasopressin, joint bonding. Then finally a joint goal. Let's say you do an escape room together, or you guys plan the house you're going to build together. You do some of the interior design and furnishings. He's doing the architecture of the land property titles, etc. Joint planning. This is legacy building. Vasopressin is released. This is how men fall in love. So oxytocin, like we said, women can break up more easily. You can get oxytocin from a lot of sources. Vasopressin is almost very singular. It's like how you had to be seduced in the beginning. You needed to feel the emotional depth from him. He wants to short-term mate, right? Just the dopamine, testosterone, pop, 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 pop. Testosterone is actually longer term than dopamine, if anything. But he will yeah, dopamine, it's easier to sleep with new women, etc., right? And testosterone creates sexual drive, but testosterone is also what results in long-term vision, which is the equivalent of me doing all that research before I go on a date with a woman, right? It's long-term vision, seeing how she can fit into my life and all that type of stuff. Dopamine is, oh, she looks hot in red, because red represents almost sexual arousal in a woman, so it attracts men, etc. They perform worse on standardized tests after they see a woman with red lipstick. But vasopressin is like this long tunnel that needs to be filled, and takes time, which is why they don't get over their first love on average, because they don't create new legacy. The equivalent is, if the woman I dated for a while, if I didn't create this whole platform after it, I'd probably still be very stuck on her. You know what I mean? But in this case, I have a totally new life now, totally brand new access to women, like complete stratospheric difference, where I'm like, the girl I choose now, if she tied to this platform, and I lose her, I'll probably never get over it. That's the truth. Okay, that's the truth. So I'm very aware of that. When you find men who are demotivated to find love, etc., they might not be aware enough, but let's even say demotivated to sleep around and stuff like that, they've given up. I'm telling you. They are if they're cynical about women in that way, I'm saying that it's because they're not over their first girl. Just like if you find the woman who's angry about men, it means they took on too much physical trauma from all these players and they never were able to tame the guy. Those are clear warning signs for like, we can change it, we can work on it, but I'm just saying it's something to be aware of, okay, when you're assessing men. So vasopressin takes a long time, and you want to co-tie to his legacy. So it's the equivalent of, he's works at a law firm, and you're like, babe, you remember you mentioned at some point that you wanted to start your own thing? What do you feel it is that what's one thing that if you had right now, it would make you think differently about it, that you would feel almost the urgency to do it sooner? Is there anything, or do you feel comfortable? And then he's like, you know what, I'm actually going to do it. Actually, your encouragement, I thought about this, and I didn't realize that my dad's pressure actually made me feel like I should stay in corporate law, but I should actually start my own practice. Some crap, and then he does that. And you are tied to that. I am telling you, that is legacy building. Those men stay with those women, okay? And that's when you reach this 5 to 7 year mark, which is when deep attachment occurs on average, which is now, it's almost like he's the golden retriever while you're the black cat, right? Then while you're going into this, let's do it almost like, should I call it a golden cat or a black retriever, I guess. I mean, in some respect, it's almost like as he's emotionally investing in you, more directed while sleeping with other women, he's kind of the golden cat. So he's still being a cat to maintain his avoidance and self-sufficiency to get his needs taken care of, but he's golden in terms of investing in you. Then you sleep with him, he becomes kind of like a black golden or a black retriever, where he's now naturally a bit more avoidant, getting more into work. The novelty is dropped. You have to be more anxious now. Then you get to the final state, right, where you guys are now equals, okay? So when you're equals, then both of you can initiate whenever you want, sexually, physically, etc. You can attract him sometimes, just give him random head. He can randomly be like, babe, come in the bedroom for a second. Like, you guys can just, it's equality. It's true love, okay? Most of you never make it through any of this crap. You're stuck in this honeymoon phase just looking for the next high, and it gets desensitized every time because oxytocin keeps breaking. You feel more unsafe. You don't feel like you know how to solve this. People aren't talking about this stuff, right? It's like when I was in the MBA program. It was so weird. The dudes, I'd be like, all right, what are you going to do in the Hamptons? Where are we going to this bar? Why this bar? They'd be like, nah, don't worry about girls. It's just about the boys. We're going to drink some beers and just, play FIFA, like some crap. And I was like, are you guys straight? Like, why are you not admitting, like, be more female centered? That is the whole point. And of course, when they go there, they're secretly looking at the women and stuff like that. I'm like, why are we not talking about this? Why is it weakness? It's actually funny. I've seen sometimes women, when they get upset with me, they try to put down the fact that I'm searching for love. Like, I wouldn't be looking for this if I hadn't slept with all the women I slept with and made the money I've made and worked everywhere and traveled the world, right? But again, like I said, I'm putting myself in a position to have her make me fall for her. And it's basically so I can be a good parent with her. If the truth is I never found love, but I got to have kids, that's my real goal. I just want better parenting so we have a joint household, right? If I just get to bang women, I still have my kids, it's really not the worst life for me. It is the truth as a man. But as a woman, if you're just abandoned with kids, etc., which is the norm for nature, you'll be fine, but then you'll have to go with other single moms, etc., on average, like across species. And that's your life, and that's a fine life, but that version is worse than a single father because men don't have as much paternal investment in their kids on average, right? Women are just more dependent and bonded with their children, because not dependent, their kids depend more on them, right? It influences early maternal influence on a child is far more important than early paternal influence, though they are both extremely important. Okay, they've shown the outcomes of children in single mother households. They have far less oxytocin, so they're not able to bond as deeply. They have a much higher crime rate, lower academic scores, lower earnings, lots of negative points. And it's understandable, because the women are so stressed on top of having to deal with this. They on average have to sometimes deal with a baby daddy who they don't respect anymore or is controlling this type of stuff. There's tension. They have to go through the government to try to steal his resources, even though they should move away from that and just do more calm accountability so they can fully tether to a news story. It's almost like when you keep yourself in these half-assed situations. I may date, but maybe someone will come into my thing. You don't get a pure story. I'm like, lean full in so that you can lean out of the wrong stories. Meaning, if you lean in full with these guys, like convergent, not the fake roster and stuff. Let's say you like a guy. Women naturally converge emotionally. So you're like, okay, no, I'm just going to be focused on this guy, and I'm going to ask him these questions on the next date and all that stuff. It'll be easier for you to get out of that if he fails in any question. But if you're keeping some mediocre purgatory of rosters, you'll be like, well, I can just jump to this guy, and he's kind of the leaderboard, and then he finds out about it. If he's masculine, he'll cut you off. So I'm like, it's a lose-lose. It's like, go in life so that you can go out, or so you get what you want. Be someone with conviction in life, okay? It's very important. And this does not imply the what did they call Shira 7, the wizard Liz, these are all clowns who are very combative, talk about these things just transactionally of like using men, and look at their situations, right? They both say men cheat on them. Like, they're both failing. You know what I mean? So I'm like, you don't want that type of advice where you could just tell no masculine man would put up with the woman even talking like that in their presence. They'd be like, get out of here, right? So I'm like, don't look for women who are playing the polarity of a man and they're seeming like they're a guardian angel tough. They're yelling at the scared inner child in you, which is liking them out of fear that you are being protected by that. You're not. They're rubbing the wound that you are yelling at yourself about, that the world is scary. And they're saying the world is scary. The world is scary. It's like, stop. The world's not scary to me. Let the man come in and take care of you, but be good at choosing the right man. And to choose the right man, you got to know how to choose yourself. It's almost like we got to get you into a good energy so everything that comes out from you is healthy. That is what we're trying to do here. Not make you memorize, okay, it's the 80-20 rule. I got to say yes here. And then the phases of love, the serotonin, I think I got. You can learn those things. Those can help. But you got to be in the mood. You know what I mean? So vasopressin. So then you get into this blissful state, which is beautiful. That's true love, right? And those couples that go through these healthy seasons of love with understanding it, they are the ones who are staying in the honeymoon phase. Now, in this core part, one thing to mention is, especially after you sleep with the guy, etc., right? A lot of times couples enter this power struggle phase, right? Because now a lot of the novelty has gone down, etc. He's getting back to work. You're experiencing, sometimes if you've had a child, etc., some postpartum, some what is it called? Not self-esteem issues, but self-worth issues, or self-conscious. You're self-conscious about your image, how you look, all these types of things. And you're worried, does he still love me? He's working a lot, all this type of stuff. How do we bond? Which is why it's very important to do date night at least once a week. You have to have sex at least once a week, right? On average, don't do it more than once a week, I'd say, because you want his testosterone to be up so he can work. You can do it many times in that session, but it's good to also let the desire build and things like that, right? And if not, if you sleep with him too many times, you're releasing a ton of oxytocin. You're getting attached. He's draining his testosterone, liking you, less novelty. He's going to feel drained, not work as much, feel like less of a man, no vasopressin releasing from overcoming the world, and then dote on you less. It's like sleeping with a man too much actually doesn't work in your favor. It may make you feel good in the short term. I'm so obsessed with him. He's not getting obsessed with you by doing that, okay? So there's that. And that's not contriving it. That's understanding the dance between two people. When you're understanding your biology, if you're in a system with someone, it cannot just be like, what makes me feel good, right? It's like, oh, let me make this child laugh if I'm a teacher. I'm a kindergarten teacher. Oh, they're just laughing. And we're going to skip nap time because I love to hear children's laughter. That may sound good that, oh, they're happy and stuff. Then they don't get naps. Then they don't do any of their studies, etc. And then they pass out later at home before they eat dinner. Like, you have to look at the whole network of how both people work, right? Because it affects you at the end of the day. So that is the whole point of love. You guys are tied together. It's interdependent selfishness, okay? So yeah, this power struggle phase and conflict, this is actually the meat of whether you make it out to the final section, the 5 to 7 year thing, which is, this is the definition of it. It's easy to be obsessed with someone in the honeymoon phase, right? In this more intense honeymoon courting phase, right? The man wants to sleep with you, the woman's getting doted on. Feels very easy flow here. Then you guys are potentially living together, right? You're hearing each other fart. You're seeing each other in sweatpants and stuff like that. You're doing some repeat activities. This is where it's very important that you have built a lot of this emotional depth, where you understand him in depth and he has intellectually stimulated you enough that you support his vision. Because if not, it will degrade fast. You'll find out things about each other that you didn't know at all, core things. And it's like, oh, I didn't know you were like that. You'll start to get annoyed by all the little things because you haven't understood this phase where you have to show your needs in a classy way and not be scared to initiate and think this means he doesn't love me. His love is translated in different ways into building for both of you, and you have to show respect for that, and you have to show thanks for that, etc. And I'm like, that is how you win. Love is a real phenomenon, and it will be harder to get that from a man who has a lot of access. That is the truth. This is almost your insurance policy to make sure you get to that. A lot of women will be like, even that, and a guy can still cheat. Okay, do you think you have a higher chance of him cheating after doing what I'm saying, which is aligned with biology, or sleeping with him on the first night when he was willing to take you on dates? What? Doesn't make sense, right? Or sleeping with a guy and then saying, well, now I'm just going to pull back and we'll see if he wants me. No, you slept with him. He has the leverage. Now you have to chase him. And maybe you made that choice because you wanted to get in his world. I understand. Okay, that's why the women sleep with me, right? But then if they give up after, I'm like, all right, then I just won. You lost. That sucks for you. So, and that's the truth. As a man, I don't care. It's a dog eat dog world. And I'm like, love is not a zero sum game. Someone doesn't have to lose to win. But I'm like, for sleeping with a woman, she has the chance to make it a winning game for her, but she's got to do more, because that's my assessment of her value. She can think I'm an idiot and be like, he doesn't realize how valuable I am. Then don't see me, right? Or show me that, etc., right? I might do the same thing with other women. I may over invest or under invest, etc. But this is how it works. And I'm telling you, the men, when they sleep with you, like, you can try to guilt trip them, make them feel bad, put the accountability on them. I'm like, you are in control of your body. Okay. We can say men should be direct, not gaslight, not lie, not cheat. I don't disagree with that, but you cannot control them. You can control yourself, and you can become a better judge of men, which is why I never experience what so many of these men experience, who have far more money than me, far more status, fame, height, all that type of stuff. And they get dogged by women because they do not understand women, and they do not understand themselves. They do not understand nature. Okay. So understanding these things is important. I'm going to take another pause here to make sure it's recording right. Okay. 27% battery left. So let's try to get some final things out. I mean, you're going to have another section that I recorded earlier, but oh yeah, I didn't introduce the guest, I don't think. Everyone wanted to meet her. I got a lot of DMs about her. So this is Chana. She's a sweetheart from FAO Shorts. They went out of business at some point when I was a kid, and then they rebranded. I think a private equity firm took over them. She's a little ballerina. She's a sweetheart. And this is Franny. Look at this sweetie pie. So they're here for support. And this is important to show. I do this because, I've accumulated all these plushies across my relations with women. And that's why I say women shouldn't get pets and things like that while you're single, because it fills the emotional void that you're supposed to feel motivated. Also the same reason to not touch yourself, etc., especially as a man. It drains your energy. But, get tons of animals once you have your guy, okay? But let's focus. Travel once you have your guy. Do your passions and hobbies and scale it into a nonprofit and stuff once you have your guy, right? But until then, tend to yourself. Yeah, the point is, I can externally see them, and I'm very protective over them because I can take almost my inner child and see it in something external, whereas just in myself, I can't just sit there and be like, oh, it's okay, you're a good guy, like all that. It's harder for me. And that's, again, alignment with myself. I manipulated myself to be able to activate practice for fatherhood. And then obviously when I have kids, they're going to get all of them, right? So you have to, this is like the thing I said earlier about the dating thing, which is if you spend 10 hours with the guy and you feel you showed your value, then if he emotionally betrays you, you just cut him off. And that could also mean it doesn't just have to be, let me suspect whether he likes someone else's picture. You don't have to do all that crap. If he's not asking you to be taken off the market, etc., if he's not planning emotional investment and dates with you, that's a sign that he's not just emotionally investing in you. If he's not willing to handle your deeper questions, etc., or take care of your needs, which you're not stating about you two, are we good enough, etc., but you could be like, how do you see How do you see your life going, right? What do you want romantically? Almost depersonalize it and see what he does. Play the devil's advocate versus being like, do you see that you love me potentially? Like, oh, what is he going to say? No, I think I hate you. No, right? So I'm like, this isn't about lying. Never lie. But I'm like, learn how to listen. There's a way to listen without crowding the room with space and then realizing you've just been dating yourself the whole time, an echo of your own desire. And that can hurt a lot when then the reality hits. So I think you understand now the phases here. I believe I touched on most of the things I touched on yesterday. Vasopressin, I talked about that, yeah. And then obviously when a man long-term commits to a woman, his testosterone drops, like I said, on average, which then allows oxytocin to also bond and allow for a deeper bond. And then sex can become a deeper act between you two, where it's not just a man wanting the pure stranger for anonymous high dopamine sex, because the oxytocin's kicking in, the vasopressin creates a signature for how you guys sleep together and the psychological context behind it, right? Like, this woman understands me and I'm conquering her and getting deeper into her. It's got to be a permanent exploration into each other. That is how love feels. That is what love is, okay? And really, love is the lubricant for good parenting, for procreation is really what it is. So keep that in mind. And again, if you're post-procreative age, that doesn't imply you don't want companionship, but the nuance is focus on the legacy building with the man. It's not, oh, he's 57, so now he can't start something new. I think the average age of a successful male entrepreneur is 43. It doesn't have to just tie with business. It could be self-understanding to allow him to be the first guy who hikes the tallest mountain in your town and you help support him with that. Like, whatever it is, it's something that ties to his purpose in a way that is uniquely co-created with you two. It's like creating an emotional little heart palace between you two. That is the truth. So emotions are a man's blind spot. The external world and almost analytic knowledge is a woman's blind spot. And that is why we come together, to support each other on that. So what I really want everyone to feel here is that this is not a battle between men and women. We need each other. It is healthy. It is beautiful. Women are amazing. Men are amazing. A lot of women can do things that are not amazing. A lot of men can do things that are not amazing. That's okay. There are some that are forgivable, some which just aren't good for you. But seek to understand. Seek to understand that even something toxic, it's like, okay, then why was I drawn to that? Was it because I liked something good in them that I tolerated this, such that if I had more of that good in my life independently, I would have been more sober and aware of this? Or was my intuition off and I actually do like some of these negative qualities, etc., right? So you want to get to a place where you are, if you're too passionate about your past in a negative way, it means you have not overcome it. Your goal is almost to not think, right? To just be in alignment with your environment, to be in flow with your environment. And like they say, it's like the habit of reading. If you want to develop reading as a habit, first start the habit of reading what you like, right? Even if it's complete smut, if it's reality TV, keeping up with the Kardashians fanfic, start just reading so you enjoy the act. Then we transfer that habit into things that could be beneficial to you, nonfiction, etc. Or for you all, it can be the classics, it can be art, it can be psychology, it can be stories, etc. So you have to learn how to manipulate yourself. And to do that, you have to understand yourself. I use manipulate. People don't like that word, but influence yourself, right? I'm an influencer. So what do you expect? So you understand. So I hope this episode sheds some light on that. I mean, there's another section I got to tack on at the end of this from yesterday, whatever. How did that bring up? Oh yeah, that was me leaving off with even who you choose as your friends is very important, right? Because you will be, especially as a woman, influenced by your friends. So be very particular. Your life is a canvas. You have to be particular, not just about what you choose to paint, but when you choose to paint, how you choose to paint, with what you choose to paint, okay? The equivalent of friendships, what you put in your body, literally, and health-wise, right? And truly, people, if you had access to sun, you ate healthy food, you had community and deep relationships and art and some access to science and seeing the universe, I'm telling you, you would be happy. Life is far simpler than we think, right? The beauty is with this complexity and more depth, we can experience even more of the richness of life. But let's make sure we get the basics right. Okay. So again, this isn't me prescribing you to do anything. I want this to be a reflective exercise. And there'll be another section in this. This turned out better than I thought, actually, because I was very pissed. after yesterday, losing the recording, but this also shows the persistence, right? I was trying so hard to sleep. I just couldn't. And I was like, are you being lack of self-discipline that you can't self-soothe your mind? Do you not have power over your mind? I was like, are you succumbing to the followers? Should you force yourself not to post for several days just to feel that you're not tied to it? And I'm like, why do you need to force that to prove something to yourself? If you're feeling this anger right now, do something with it. And I did. I leaned into it. So I don't feel tension right now. I leaned into the emotion. Will this hopefully reduce my anger? Yeah, I don't feel angry right now, right? Did this create an addiction that I always have to create content? No, because I would have woken up and then done it begrudgingly. Right now, I'm like, I feel good. So it's just this state of not being in tension with yourself. If you're fighting yourself, then of course you're going to fight with a man. You have that inner battle. It's like if you're very sensitive and reactive to the environment, there's probably a lot of pent up pain that's looking for an excuse to show itself and basically exfoliate. It's almost not the sources. You're not even really blaming the man. You're not even fully able to blame yourself because you don't know what to blame in yourself. You can try to latch on to maybe parents, maybe social media, etc., but it just feels like I'm in a muck. I don't know what to do. I'm doing the best I can. And then you'll be victim groveling for almost empathy. Does anyone care? Does anyone care? While you're racking up more trauma, right? Which the opposite happens. It's like people don't actually want to give the beggars more money. They want to give the one who doesn't ask. It's like when you enter a store and it's like ding, 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 ding. What did Louis C.K. say when you go into a small store and it like rings and they're immediately like, hello, how can I help you? It's like, oh God, Jesus Christ. Now you don't want them to ignore you either, but I'm like, see this as someone attempting to see you. Okay. I'm hopefully seeing parts of you. I don't understand you fully. I don't know you in depth, but there's someone out here who is putting energy and time into this, who believes in the story, who's been with more women than any of the guys you're going to date, right? Unless you're dating Chris Brown or something like that. But he used money and status and all this stuff. So I'm like, no, I'm just, the point being that I'm here despite all of that, believing in love. So you definitely can. I believe in you is what I'm saying. Now, this is weird because I'm kind of wrapping this up in this way, but there's going to be another section. So too bad. That's flow, baby. All right, I'm out of here. All right, phone died. So, we have to stay with the flow. But I was saying something about who you surround yourself with. Essentially, when you reflect on yourself, as I say maybe, or do others say it, it doesn't matter. Men like women who say yes. Women like men who say no. So men naturally are more combative, more avoidant, right? So in general, they're going to be saying no more. As I say, if they can't stand up to you, they can't stand up for you. So if you want to test a man, you have to look at his underbelly. Since no is his normative form, of course, the yes boys, you definitely got to watch out for, but see what he said yes to in his life and his past emotionally. That's the marker you want to look for. You don't want to look for, oh, tell me all the girls you said no to who tried to sleep with you. He's a man. That's the difference. Whereas for a woman, you want to see what a woman has said no to physically or sensorially, right? So these are the underbellies that you want to test for. And I wanted to touch on just a few points to wrap up, which is I briefly mentioned that equivalent that, women recover and repair better because of multiple oxytocin sources, right? And they'll almost require those multiple contexts to feel safe with a man, that he can handle different types of issues along the courting phase in order for her to bond deeply and feel safe with him. Men, like I said, it's vasopressin. It takes longer for it to fill. It's like a singular deep pipeline, which is why a lot of times when men tie a lot of themselves to that early love, quote unquote, love lasts, but they're never able to get past it. Right? They start downgrading to either just the trophy wife, to a distraction, or out of their broken self-esteem now, almost a woman who does boss them around, or the antithesis to their type. Okay? So the way you overcome that, right? Let's say someone who's in her 50s and she's looking for love, she's gotten past a divorce, etc. Most men, if you're going for a healthy relation, the man older than you, etc., who sees you as a younger woman to him, the way you break that initial connection is you have to deeply tie and create a new legacy for him, with him, not for him. He has to have that in mind. And this is why you'll see, if you see a man not motivated for love, like I said, the sad boy, chances are that early woman, he's broken by it. That's the truth. If you see a woman too angry and cortisol driven, etc., yapping about how men suck and stuff, that means she's been broken by too many alpha widowed physically men. It's like that's the telltale sign for the man and the woman. And typically those will end up with each other, right? And they'll try to perform kind of what the gender specific societally accepted role is so they can keep up that echo chamber, meaning they'll look for the guy with the tattoos, the firefighter, the athlete who doesn't really have the long-term planning vision that's a problem solver in depth. It's the short-term mating they're optimizing for almost as a man, right? And then the man will be a sad boy who might even get the sugar mama who is serving to essentially be his dad in some weird way. Okay, his mother, but in a masculine sense because he's following around like a lapdog and he'll be younger than her, all these types of things. So we want to optimize for these are the checks that you want to do, that you want to tie into, understand his legacy by seeing what he said yes to emotionally in his past. This is what you cannot be scared of. This is the monster you do want to prod. This is how he deepens with you. Like I've said, if you leave something, if you're too afraid to go to a man's vulnerable spots because, oh, he might flare up and heat up, etc. What's a good physical example? I'm seeing something. It's kind of like smelting rock or smelting a glass stone, right? Lightning with sand to create glass. You need it to be hot to be able to mold and trench yourself with him to build something together, right? Now, if you create that heat and then you back away quickly, it turns into rust, right? It'll harden and then he won't create attachment with you. But if you stay away from it, there's no heat. There's no depth beyond just being turned on by a hot woman. And that can happen anytime. Now, some people may worry about this, which is that, wait, never start with a man who's broke and then build with him, right? And then at the finish line, he'll leave you for the younger secretary. That is true in the sense that if you get a man before he has access to women, before he has any sufficient money, this doesn't have to be his final state. If anything, I say it's when he is in his growth phase, but he's had enough to have access. Then yes, when he finally gets access to women who are his type, because men have a physical type, women have a dispositional type. That's the truth. Tall, dark, and handsome is the type for women on average. Okay. I mean, there are different features if you tie it to certain biochemical complements that are like the higher dopamine women will like the serotonin men, and that translates to different physical characteristics. On average, the high testosterone women will like softer, almost doe features in the man. There's some things like that, but on average, they want a man taller than them, who's got some brawn, etc., and is not completely pale. That's the truth. Okay, with a more masculine face. That's just the reality. Men have very specific physical types and are far more forgiving emotionally and with the disposition of the woman. But point being that if you start with him when he's completely broke or you build completely with him, he won't be thankful at the end. That is the truth. That is the harsh truth. So I agree. You should not build with a man from scratch. He should have enough to take care of you. He should have access to women such that you know he is choosing you. That is the whole point. But that doesn't imply you don't help him build even further, deepening his legacy, right? Creating that legacy to its fullest potential. That's the point. But if a man makes you his legacy, right? And my whole platform's like finding the one, etc. But behind all of this is that I've already worked at incredible places, right? The CIA, White House, NASA, JP Morgan. I've made money. I've traveled the world, etc. I've slept with a lot of women. So I've established a core base that naturally the extension now is, okay, I want to have kids. I'm a human. That's my natural instinct. And you need a woman for that. Obviously, I want to love her. So we have good children, right? I want my activity core partner. And it will help me reach my legacy even deeper, which isn't just yapping about this stuff, but it's building an institute around all this stuff. We don't have to worry about me right now. I want to talk to you all. So the point being is, yes, again, there's a sweet spot for almost everything in life, right? Just like the not too low testosterone, not super too high testosterone, even though that's out of the two is probably better of the two. But technically for short-term mating out of the two. But yeah, if you want a long-term provider, if you're doing, what do they call it, the alpha fucks, beta bucks, then you'd want the super low T guy, which a lot of these guys are, who then perform masculinity. But you ideally want the healthy range. Above average testosterone would be healthier than below average, let's put it that, versus the extremes. But yeah, because the super highest version, they'll just end up in jail or they'll be homunculus and destroy. Yeah. Point being, so you don't want a man who you are building him up. Oh, I sometimes pay his bills. Oh, he just got fired. Yeah, sorry, that's his life. Oh, he's depressed right now. Sorry. Sad boys don't get you. They cannot. Okay, if that's their consistent state. Are they going to get sad at different points? 100%. Are they going to experience failure? 100%. These are the things you want to find out. his emotional past, right? What has he said yes to in response to those failures? I got fired from this job. Emotionally, I felt this, so I ended up doing this, right? He was saying yes to a new path. What did he choose in those moments? These are the signatures you want to look for, and you want to unearth in him, because I guarantee he's not sitting there thinking about all this when he has to just keep working as a man on average, right? That is you being the therapist, the high emotional intelligence, as he should have the high intellectual quotient, the IQ to make money and solve the world, to take care of you, right? So to be almost that rock and that fire under you that creates direction and vision that he has, right? So your past matters more, his future matters more, which is why you bring your past understanding to him, of him. He brings future inspiration and passion and vision to you of his own, right? So that's the point. Yes, you want to build a man with the man to his full potential, but he's got to already have sufficient amount to take care of you. All right, so that's important. That's one thing. And you want to build legacy with him that he had not had prior. So if it's just like he's already had a business, he's well established, etc., and now I'm just kind of like his nurse and cheerleader on the side. Yeah, he's not going to hate you, but he will love the prior woman who built a family with him, all that type of stuff, and you'll have that kind of love story with him. It's not deep love. Okay, if you want to do that. Now, other people will ask, wait, so I'm sleeping with him. I finally make that choice after he's courted me after all this time. He was sleeping with others. That seems scary in the first place or whatever, but okay, let's say I allow that. What finally happens at the end? I sleep with him, and you're saying he only falls in love 5 to 7 years in? That seems insane. The truth is, men will say I love you sooner. It's like the early version of love they'll experience first, and they'll verbalize it first, because like I said, men have to emotionally escalate. But deep love for a man, this is how it works. Men are vulnerable at the beginning, investing their resources, emotions in you. Okay, you're more guarded from that because you're not giving to him physically. Then after he sleeps with you, you are more at risk. This is the balancing of the equation. Now you have to basically become more proactive. That is the truth. You don't get to just get away with getting doted on your whole life. That's just not how it works. Sorry. Everything's balanced in this universe. So you now have to take on the brunt of it, basically. It's almost like post-courting. And then you guys become 50-50 equal. So that is the reality. This is the seasonality that I want you to understand, because there is a difference. And to release that vasopressin, like I said, you don't want to mistime it. Some women ask me, how can I release vasopressin early on? Can I problem solve with him? And can we do a joint project, joint activity? I'm like, no, he's got to be turned on by you first and pursuing you. Now, there's a nuance to this, which is this whole Madonna whore complex type of thing. There's a way to resolve that, which is that the classic is a man wants a good girl who goes bad for him, or is a bad girl for him in private. And then the man basically gets the good girl who, goes bad for him. And then the reverse is you want the bad boy who then dotes on you and devotes himself to you as the good man, right? So the reality is that when a man's pursuing you, it may come across, it's driven through sexual desire up front, okay? And that's what's driving all the planning in the shadows. How do I court her? How do I get into her world? But the truth is, when he's in front of you, I'm telling you this from experience, when a man goes for a woman he truly likes, she is like the Madonna, meaning his sexuality gets tempered. I'm like, when I'm with the girl I actually like, when I'm with a girl I just want to sleep with, by definition, that's all I'm thinking about, because I'm assessing this is the value they can offer me. This is like you friend zoning a guy, right? You're not thinking about, what if he just slips a kiss in with me? With a guy you like, you are wondering, oh, he got closer to me. Oh my God, I'm feeling a little flush in my cheeks. Like, it's different. It's a totally different context, right? With a girl I like, it's because she's releasing that oxytocin, especially if she's more feminine. Remember, testosterone inhibits the effects of oxytocin, which is the more predominant feminine bonding hormone. It doesn't imply that it doesn't allow men to bond. It does. Like I said, after a man nuts, his testosterone drops if he stays over and cuddles, etc., and that testosterone slightly lowered. It eventually rises back up, but the dopamine's lower, the prolactin's released, so he's sleepier. And he cuddles with you, that oxytocin is releasing, right? A lot of times the guy doesn't sleep over all this type of stuff. So point being that is beneficial, that works in your favor, okay, for him bonding to you. But when you release that oxytocin, which is like a high-pitched voice, just literally touching him, creating a sensorially calm environment. I see a lot of women who, when they get into an issue with the guy, they say things like, I like to handle problems directly, so it's all about communication. I'm like, no, ew. Do you know how to communicate with a man? Because men are less verbal than a woman. When a man's upset and a woman's like, okay, so what's upset? Or can we talk? I'm like, God, it's so annoying. It is so annoying. And that's just being a man. That's not, oh, men have to learn to use their words. No, you have to learn how to translate to his world if he's the version of being upset. If you're both upset with each other, depends. In the courting phase, he should do more. If you're right after sleeping with him, you have to do more. It's about leverage, right? Like if he blocks you right after you sleep with him, you get screwed. If he invests 1 year of taking you on dates, etc., and just sleeping with women but getting emotionally attached to you, he gets screwed if you suddenly bang some new guy and never gave anything to him physically, right? So the point is, oxytocin, you create a sensorially calm environment. You don't go verbal first. You check in with him. You try to mirror this state. And then I talk about this archetypes. Go to my highlights. You can look at it. When to be like the sister, the mother, the lover, or the daughter. There are different times and places for these things. A lot of women go into mothering. Like, you know you're better than this, babe. You can do this, babe. Like what he said doesn't, it's like, suffocating, annoying. Sometimes it's the daughter thing. Too many questions. Like, well, tell me, like, when did it start? Like, how did you feel? And it's like, okay, that's not the time for that. Sometimes it's the cheerleader. Like, let's go destroy him. Like, he shouldn't have said that. He's such an idiot. It's like, no, that's maybe there's not the time and place for that. There's time and place for all of these things, and you should learn the context for it. Okay. So if he's pissed at something, that's when you go cheerlead. You double up, etc. So then you're a cheerleader. It's like the sister being on his same team, right? When he's saying he's not good enough, that's when you go mothering. He needs the nurturing, etc. Right? When he's trying to be passionate and do vision, that's when you do daughter archetype, so that he can teach and learn and feel competent and feel reinforced by you. You have to understand it's stuff. Yeah, I say it maybe too pejoratively because it's like common sense to me, but I've spent years doing this, so I should be nice about it. Yeah. Okay. So I'm trying to help you guys. Okay. So oxytocin, you release this. I'm saying when a woman does that, when I'm taking her seriously, etc., it almost creates an environment where my testosterone doesn't have to spike as much in the first place. So I feel the emotion feels like childlike play. When I'm with a woman like that, I want to hang out. I want to play board games. I want to like literally play. I don't mean play, but I mean like play. It's like it literally gets you, you can't get hard. It's like when you feel protective over her, you can't get turned on at the same time. It's a weird like inhibitor. It's activating different parts of your system. You're not just going pure limbic primal mode. There's like prefrontal cortex planning because you're figuring out how to activate her, and his parasympathetic nervous system. There's like down regulation because you're lowering his aggression. So it's almost like the aggression is there, the sexuality, he's planning. Then he sees you, and you, like a switch, you're able to just create this different, you are the environment. It's like the cliche they say, a woman walks into a room and the whole place lights up, and she's like a glow or whatever. I'm like, it feels like play. So I'm like, you don't even have to feel the fear. It's kind of like Edward Cullen again with Bella. I'm like, when I'm with those women, I'm trying to delay banging. You know what I mean? I speed it up if I know she slept with someone before or something, but I also don't really take those women seriously. But I'm like, that's the psychological layer. But I'm saying in the physical layer, it's almost like the more receptive they are, the less I have to assert my power. You know what I mean? And a lot of times physicality for men, it's not actually that they're so turned on by you. It's just that they have to know that they have that influence and power over you. It's not about attention. It's not about that. It's about, conquering. That's the truth as a man. And you like that in different aspects, when he conquers and makes money, when he conquers and he's protective over you and makes you walk on the other side of the street so you're not close to the car. It's not going to suddenly turn off in this. Vasopressin is called the mate guarding hormone in a lot of ways. Territorial aggression, possessiveness, you can call it protectiveness, whatever it is. So I'm saying all of that, it's important to understand all these things, okay? This is the phasing and the stages of love, and I'm like, that is how it will look different. Almost a man's sexuality will be tempered. It almost won't feel like by choice. Of course, it's because he's more into you, but it's like, it's the equivalent of men will perform worse on standardized tests after looking at a woman with red lipstick. It's like, when it's like turned on to a point, it's like the face card's so good that it almost feminizes you. It's like you want to feminize the man up front so he's anxious, and then he wants to masculinize you so that when you're attached, you then are trying to fulfill him sexually with all your kinkiness, right? Then women get more sexual after they sleep with the guy because the oxytocin's released. Now they go crazy. They're almost like a man up front trying a million things. You know what I mean? So I'm like, it's like this perfect symmetry, but understanding it is so key, or it's going to feel like whiplash in every direction. And you're end up getting pieces of it where you'll sleep with the masculine guy, but then he won't date you. And then you'll be like, you'll kind of put them down, but you'll secretly crave them. And then you'll resent the kind of weaker guy. So I'm like, you have to know how you feel about these things at your core, and you have to allow yourself to not feel guilty. That's another thing. So much of our trauma in relations comes from not being able to conflict resolve and understanding why we're drawn to a person. There's these core feminine masculine traits, but a lot of it is playing out our traumas, which is like you could have felt inadequate at some point. You could have felt shame, guilt growing up, right? Sometimes it's religious-based guilt. It's guilt at being a sibling who had to take care of other siblings because your mom was sad or your dad wasn't around, whatever it is. And then you play out that same type of dimension, both in wanting that trauma rubbed by your relationship and wanting it solved, which can be very contradictory, right? Because how can the problem be the solution? But you need the person who can see it. And that doesn't imply sometimes people will do the cliche, I want a guy who's gone through what I've gone through. No, that's not it either. You want a man who's overcome trauma. You want yourself to be the one who's avoided and has perspective on it and heals from it. Pain is just bad for women, okay? It's not good. Pain for men, if they overcome it, makes them a man. It releases this vasopressin. It's like a brotherhood bonding hormone. When they were hunting together, it would release this stress overcoming hormone. Struggle is good for men. Okay. So it's just good to understand these things and to reflect on your own core almost wound, they can call it, right? And how that plays out. Because I guarantee the flavor of your love stories are rooted in that. And that does not imply, oh, that means I have to heal it and self-actualize and overcome it. Becoming aware is the first part of it. You can't just undo who you are. Okay, accept who you are. And to do that, first be willing to see it. No goal, no prescription. No, I got to get to this. I got to get to this. Oh, the goal is love. Yeah, the goal is to connect. Sure, we've got that. We don't have to keep repeating it. The step to that is understand it's not being in tension with oneself, right? Even if that implies I'm going to lash out for a second. Okay, we do that so that we quickly learn not to, right? But just giving yourself that space to be in a room with yourself, not needing to quickly get validation from others to say they're in the same room with you, all that stuff. Yes, community is all going to be important, all that. Choose your friends wisely, but choose your art wisely. Choose what you put in your body in ways more than one wisely. But first, be still. Be still. Be willing to be still before you move. Okay? It's very important. So I'll wrap up with just a message to the love of my life that I'm feeling very good. You know, the holidays are coming up and again, I'm spending them alone, but I feel good about it. I'm going to this chalet in a week or so, and I'm very excited because it's the first place I'm ever renting that matches my personality, at least from what I've seen of it. It feels like me. It's this vampire werewolf hybrid. It's on a mountain close enough to some small city, but it is minimalist and modern, and it is me. It's a lot of glass. It's the woods. I really like it. I've been reading a lot, and I didn't realize reading is like a different version of body count for me. I take pride in being number one at that relative to my just using my mind to sleep with women. It's like currency, right? Like I crush it, which is whatever. I feel very proud of that and feel number one at that. So I'm like, reading though feels like this little power grab because I'm like, every time I read, I get more knowledge and it feels like a body count internally of knowledge. So I've been enjoying reading a lot. I have a 65 book reading list for this year. But again, flow. If I don't like some things, I'm going to throw it out. If I like some new ones, I'm going to add it in. But I want you to be ready, okay? Because I'm very time oriented. I have a very good sense of timing. And it's like in university when I would have an essay due, I would know at the right point when I had to turn on the actual energy in the engine to do the work. And I can feel that is starting. It's going to start on my birthday, which is coming up, the 2-year mark of when I have to find you. Now, of course, there's some movement around that. I technically have a 1-year courting period. I could make that shorter. I have stored my sperm when I was 25. So if we really need backup, I want 5 kids. We'll see what your body can handle, but we need at least 4, okay? Or, sorry, we're getting the sister wife. But the point is, 2 years for me, I feel I need that amount to get what I want, okay? So the time's upon us, and I want you to be ready because I am going to find you. I feel very sure about it. I know myself. I know how I do things. And I'm excited because I also get to activate a different part of myself. I have these 31 letters I wrote years ago, I think in 2020, for the one, right? And I posted that all over my Instagram. I think it's in a highlight called For You, Letters to My Love, etc. But since then, I've written my true magnum opus. It's 11,011 words, and I've sent it to no one who I've sussed out yet. And I don't want to read it on the platform yet till I send it to one, but I know that is going to be what truly captures your heart. It is the representation. It is the magnum opus of me. It is true Kiszmet represented. So I'm very excited to actually, I send copy and paste message to all these girls to sleep with them. I don't ask anything that even ties to any remote effort. I don't have to, honestly. So why would I? If I'm just, it's sex or love for me. There's no in between. There's no dating and all this stuff that other people do. So I'm very excited for the hunt because I'm like, I get to try now. And I'm like, it's that vasopressin. I get effort and it's fun. And I'm excited because I am good at the hunt. And I'm like, this is going to be a high effort hunt. So I'm going to have a very narrow spear that perfectly targets you. And I'm like, I like the challenge. I'm excited. So I'm very pumped. Once I find you, I'll obviously post the letter. I don't even have to reread it. I've read my 31 letters over and over again, but I don't even have to reread this because I just know. It's like, I won't feel cringe about it. I mean, I've read it multiple times when I first wrote it, and it took a lot of effort, but I'm like, it was across different biomes. I wrote it in different phases tied to my cognitive functions, tied to Myers-Briggs. It was incredible. And I don't even need to reread it. I'll live and breathe it. I am it. So I'm very excited for you to receive that. And women, if you're out there and if one of you is the one, obviously I want to hunt, but put your email in your put your email in your Instagrams or whatever the heck it is. But yeah, if you're not an ISFP, if you're not really 18 to 22, you have to have a 0 body count. You got to be at least 5'6", really 5'7" to 5'9", green or hazel eyes. It doesn't matter. It's going to be about the eye shape, but that's tied to ISFP. You got to be a C cup or above. I know these all sound insane. You got to be an artist, all this stuff, but I'm like, usually those all come in the same package because ISFP and all this stuff. So I'm like, and then the age thing tied to not sleeping around because I want the deepest bond biochemically. It's all the stuff, okay? Don't get mad at me. If you're not her, don't talk to me. Okay, just listen. Or go, let's get you your man so you don't get pissed at me. But yeah, babe. So I'm very excited. I love you. And of course, if anyone needs help, you can text me. It's 80 cents for 80 characters. You can call me, voice memo me. There is a link in my bio. Feel free to take in the 10,000 or so videos I've made already, which are, of course, available for free. That is me protecting you from a lot of the pain I felt and from my natural capture abilities of women so I can prevent you from lesser wolves. But yeah, it's all for the one. Like I said, interdependent selfishness. A lot of the women in this platform have helped me understand women better and given me purpose, right? And help fulfill this mission because this is my life calling, as one would say. It's what I'm good at and what I care about. And thanks for coming. So yeah, I think the next episode we'll record will be in the palace, and then after that we go to a yurt. Then I'm going to a wedding for my cousin in India, which is going to come with some family tension, but we'll handle it. I think I'm mature enough. We'll see. It might be the last time I see them. I don't know. We'll see. Then we're going to do maybe someplace in between India and Australia. We'll see somewhere in the Far East. Then we're going to do Australia. I got a lot of followers there, so we'll see how that goes. Australian women are wild. At least the ones I've met, they're hot. They're wild. So we'll do that, and then we're going to do South Korea. I love Korean women. Love Korean drama, Korean food. Love that. So we'll do Seoul in the winter, and then we will come back to Seychelles to do some Africa. Then we'll be done with all 7 continents, all 50 states. Then we come back to America. We're going to build more, choose a conservative city to live outside of. And we will start building the keys to the kingdom that you will come into. And then that the next final year after my next birthday will be pure hunt. Pure every day, just going wherever in the world to get you and lock this in. That's another thing as a final tip with women, concentrate and focus. The roster thing is a big lie. Like when you're into a guy, turn everything off. Honestly, like that's the thing. Women wonder, it's the beautiful reality cut and judge of nature, which is that you can't fake relationships in the sense. You can be performative and be in bad relationships and stuff. But I'm like, for all of the people who complain out there, I'm like, they're not willing to be with someone they completely hate, right? So it's like you can judge so much by someone's partner. Relationships cause the biggest pains and the deepest pleasures in our life. So I'm like, I can't fake a relation, but I'm smart enough that I'm going to choose someone. I have to have kids. So I'm not like a lot of you who are going to be like running around waiting and all this stuff. Like close in 1 year, get it done. Okay. Follow my advice. Let's get this done. And let's be happy. We have one life. Exciting as fuck, isn't it? Right? The opportunity for something so magical as love. So I appreciate you listening. And, keep your chin up. Always hope. It is the core to life, energy, creation, literally and figuratively. And we will get this done. All right? Happy holidays. And we will talk soon. Yeah.